Chapter 1094. There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Nothing could be hidden, let alone such a big thing. Those who should know and wanted to know would naturally know. Therefore, the news that Qin Sheng was assassinated and his life was unknown gradually began to spread. More and more people knew about it. However, whether it was the Zhu family or the Song family, they were guarding the hospital strictly. They would never let the news spread to the old lady and the old master. Although they would know it sooner or later, they might delay it for a day. Song Ryu was still on her way to Ningbo. Since she had vented her anger, she would not show her sadness on her face. Instead, she hid all her emotions in her heart, because she knew that there was something more important. In the sixth uncle's villa in Shuni district, today, the sixth uncle drove everyone away, leaving only 2 trusted subordinates to stay here. At this moment, the living room on the second floor of the villa was filled with smoke, making it hard for people to breathe. What was more suffocating was the depressing atmosphere. Only the sixth uncle, the eldest son of the Su family, and Zhe Yuan were there. At this moment, everyone's faces were dark. Sixth uncle, why haven't you called Master Long yet? Zhe Yuan took a big puff of the cigarette, but his head was covered in cold sweat. Master Long's move had directly killed them, and Zhe Yuan did not know how to face it now. The sixth uncle looked a little pale. He lit another cigarette subconsciously. He had smoked more cigarettes today than he had in the past few years, because he had not encountered such a big crisis for a long time. It's already happened. What's the use of calling him now? Do you think he will admit it? The sixth uncle snorted. The head of the Su family and Zhe Yuan looked at each other. When he heard the news, he couldn't take it anymore. Compared to the pressure on sixth uncle and Zhe Yuan's side, the Su family was facing even more pressure this time. This was because many members of the Su family were in the system. With the strength of the Zhu family and the Song family, the Su family would definitely collapse. The eldest son of the Su family said angrily, since he did it, he should be responsible for what he did. Why should we take the blame for him? Zhe Yuan also said, Sixth uncle, I don't care about other things, but this time, we really don't have the ability. I don't even dare to tell my family now. If my family knows about this, I will be completely marginalized from now on. What Zhe Yuan said was right. He was responsible for the cooperation with sixth uncle. Now that such a big thing had happened, his family was likely to pay a heavy price. So Zhe Yuan's ending was obvious. Sixth uncle said lightly, Then what do you think we should do? You guys teach me. Sixth uncle felt rather helpless. He really didn't know why Elder Long was doing this. It would be a lose-lose situation for both sides. Furthermore, they hadn't reached that point yet. The eldest of the Su family had already thought of a countermeasure, and he replied, No matter who asks about this, we will not admit that we were involved. Moreover, we did not participate at all. As for Elder Long, I'll leave it to you, sixth uncle. I hope you can persuade Elder Long not to involve us. Sixth uncle said thoughtfully, I'll fight for it, but the hope is slim. You and I both know very well that he did this at this time because he wants us to bear the responsibility with him. Then we don't care. At worst, we will shed all pretense of cordiality, the eldest son of the Su family said firmly. Anyway, what had already happened. Who would be afraid of offending Elder Long? At this time, Zhe Yuan said, My idea is that from today on, we will completely ease the relationship with the Qin family. We will take the initiative to disassociate ourselves from this matter. We can't let the Zhu family and the Song family burn their anger on us. Even if we have to pay a price, as long as we can make them believe us, it will be fine. Sixth uncle found it funny and said, Zhe Yuan, you are too naive. At this time, no matter what we say, will the Zhu family and the Song family listen to us? Zhe Yuan insisted. Even if they don't listen to us, we have to do it. How can we know if we don't do it? Sixth uncle, don't you realize the seriousness of this matter? This time, it is not only the Qin family's matter. This time, old lady Zhu and old master Song may be involved. If they stand out at that time, do you think we can handle it? The eldest son of the Su family let out a long sigh and said, Then we can only pray that Qin Sheng is fine. If he is still alive, there is still room for everything. We can compromise with the Chong, and family and Chong. But if he is really dead, I'm afraid that no matter how we explain at that time, it will be useless. So I hope that this guy is lucky. Zhe Yuan sneered and said, Uncle Su, are you going to resign yourself to fate? The eldest son of the Su family snorted and said, What else can I do? At this time, sixth uncle looked at the two of them and said, I want to know if something really happens to Qin Sheng and the Zhu family and the Song family really start a war with us. What will you do? This question did make them speechless. The eldest son of the Su family looked cold and did not say anything. Zhe Yuan frowned and was obviously still thinking. After a long time, Zhe Yuan said slowly, If it were me, I would give in, but I don't know what my family will choose. It seemed that sixth uncle had expected this answer, but he did not say anything. The eldest son of the Su family said, Sixth uncle, I really don't know what to do except to refuse to admit it, because if I resist, the result will be worse. After the eldest son of the Su family said this, sixth uncle could not help but laugh at himself. It seemed that he already knew what would happen to him, in a manner in Haitian district. An old man directly smashed the expensive snuff bottle in his hand on the ground and shouted angrily, What a bunch of good-for-nothings. Until now, you still can't find out the specific progress. What else can you do? Now the standard in Ningbo was very high. So many tycoons from the province had gone there, and so many tycoons had called them. There were also many tycoons who were watching this matter behind the scenes. Who dared to leak the secret at this time? Someone whispered in the ear of the old master. Old master, we still don't know whether Qin Sheng is dead or alive. But Lao Gui and the others must be dead. Now what we are most afraid of is that they will find out about us. We have to prepare for a rainy day. Old Master Long said disapprovingly, When I did this, I had already prepared for it. Why do I need to prepare for a rainy day? I have waited for so many years. I just want to wait for this day. Even if I lose everything, I will not hesitate. But the result I want is that Qin Sheng must die. Another confidant replied, Old Master, don't worry. According to what they said in Ningbo, Qin Sheng is currently missing. Otherwise, why would they make such a big effort to search in Ningbo? The one who spoke first retorted, It may also be to find other killers. How can you be sure that they are looking for Qin Sheng? The man sneered and said, Of course I know, because finding Qin Sheng is more important than finding the murderer. If Lao Gui really died there, would they still need to look for the murderer? After the man finished speaking, the one who spoke first did not say anything else. Although Lao Gui's identity was not well known, as long as they found a way to find out, they would definitely find out about Old Master Long sooner or later. At that time, there was no need to explain. Why did they let Lao Gui go to Ningbo in the first place? It was because they believed in Lao Gui's strength. Moreover, Lao Gui had other helpers with him. Qin Sheng would definitely die. However, the result was somewhat confusing. Lao Gui could not be contacted at all, and Qin Sheng seemed to be missing. What on earth was going on? After all, there was such a big movement in Ningbo, and all the members of the Qin family gathered in Ningbo. If Qin Sheng was only injured and not dead, these people should all be in the hospital. This was the basis of the man's judgment. The man continued, Old Master, my guess is that if Lao Gui is really dead and Qin Sheng is missing, there's only one possibility. Old Master Long instantly came to his senses and asked, What possibility? The man said unhurriedly, That is, there is another force secretly watching Qin Sheng. One possibility is that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it. They finally kill Lao Gui and take Qin Sheng away. The other possibility is that this force killed Lao Gui and the others and saved Qin Sheng. After the man finished speaking, the more elder Long thought about it, the more he felt that it was highly possible. He could not care less about guessing whether the man in the story had killed Qin Sheng or saved him. Instead, he was wondering who this force was. In Tianshan, Xinjiang. In this season, the scenery on Tianshan was really as beautiful as a painting, which made people unable to extricate themselves from it. A middle-aged man stood on the mountainside and looked at the scenery below helplessly. Do we really have to do this? After saying this, The man got up and went back to pack his luggage, because it was time for him to go back. Chapter 1095. This middle-aged man was actually over 50 years old. He had a long beard, and most of his hair was already white. He was dressed very simply in coarse hemp clothes, but his ruddy face made him look especially spirited. His eyes were very firm, as if he could see through a person's heart. The middle-aged man quickly packed up his things. In fact, there wasn't much to it. It was just an old backpack with some small trinkets inside. To him, everything else was just worldly possessions. After all, money, power, status, and reputation were all things that he had given up. When the middle-aged man arrived at the foot of the mountain, there was already a land cruiser waiting for him. 30 achievements, dust and soil, 8,000 miles of road, clouds and moon. He had thought that he could enjoy his old age in peace, but he didn't expect that he would have to come out again at this time. Unfortunately, such a big thing happened. He had worked for the Qin family all his life. Although he had retired successfully, he had to stand up when the Qin family was in danger. When Song Ruyu arrived in Ningbo, it was already afternoon. She had never been to Ningbo before, nor had she thought about coming here. She didn't expect that she would come here for Qin Sheng. What made her feel more helpless was that Qin Sheng's ex-girlfriend was from Ningbo, and Qin Sheng had an accident in Ningbo because he was attending the funeral of his ex-girlfriend's grandma. In fact, she had nothing to say. Although Qin Sheng didn't tell her about this, she wouldn't stop him even if he had. Besides, since the other side had such a meticulous plan, they would definitely do it in other places, even if they were not in Ningbo. Because of Song Ruyu's noble identity, Zhu Qingwen arranged for Chang Baji and Hao Lei and Yujbak to pick her up at the airport. Before finding other possible killers, Ningbo was not safe. No one knew whether other killers had left Ningbo or not, so they had to be careful. Zhu Qingwen, of course, was well protected by the police when she went out. Besides, she only went to the Municipal Public Security Bureau and spent the rest of her time in the hotel. This hotel was strictly controlled from top to bottom. Even a fly couldn't fly in. Besides, the other side wouldn't do anything to Zhu Qingwen unless they were courting death. However, Qin Ran was different. If they dared to do anything to Qin Sheng, of course they dared to do it. Who knew whether Qin Ran was their target or not? Therefore, before they found Qin Sheng or left Ningbo, Zhu Qingwen told Qin Ran to stay in the hotel obediently and not to go anywhere. The floor where Qin Ran stayed was even more heavily guarded. Moreover, these people of the Qin family stayed close to her. No one could find any chance to sneak into her room. Chang Baji and the others went back to the hotel after picking up Song Ruyu. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran were waiting in the hotel. That morning, Zhu Qingwen received many calls, including the Songs and families and Qin's family friends. No matter what was going on or whether they needed help, they could, or Qin's death, they could. Chang Baji drove the car directly to the parking apron, which Zhu Qingwen had told him. Hao Lei and the others drove in the front, while Chang Baji drove behind with Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu didn't say a word on the way, even when Chang Baji greeted her. Song Ruyu didn't reprimand them for failing to protect Qin Sheng. Even when Chang Baji explained the current situation to her in detail on the way, she only said a few words. No one could tell what Song Ruyu was thinking about. She looked calm, but her eyes were firm. Chang Baji wanted to comfort Song Ruyu, but she didn't know what to say. However, she knew Song Ruyu well enough to know that she didn't need anyone to comfort her. It would be useless to comfort her. When they arrived at the hotel suite, Chang Baji opened the door, and Song Ruyu walked in slowly. At this time, except for Zhu Qingwen, Qin Ran, Chang Baji, and Gong Sun, the others left because they all knew who was playing a role here. Song Ruyu walked to Zhu Qingwen and greeted her in a low voice. "Auntie." Then, Zhu Qingwen greeted Qin Ran and Gong Sun. He was quiet and emotionless, which made everyone a little uncomfortable. Qin Ran was not as strong as Song Ruyu when it came to Qin Sheng. She had already broken down and blamed herself. "Ruyu, I'm sorry." No one knew whether Qin Ran was apologizing for not taking good care of Qin Sheng or for not informing Song Ruyu in time. But Song Ruyu just said lightly, "Sister, it's not your fault." I believe he'll be fine. Seeing Song Ruyu's reaction, Zhu Qingwen couldn't help admiring her. No wonder the Song family had high hopes for her, and no wonder so many families in Siju City wanted her. To be honest, if the Qin family and the Song family hadn't been friends, and if they hadn't known each other since they were young, Song Ruyu would never have chosen Qin Sheng. Even Zhu Qingwen felt that Qin Sheng didn't deserve Song Ruyu. Ruyu, I'm sorry, Zhu Qingwen said in a low voice. Song Ruyu helped Zhu Qingwen sit down and said, Annie, I'm his fiancé. Zhu Qingwen didn't know what to say, so she said, Lao Chong told you about the current situation on the way here, right? Yes, I already know. Song Ruyu nodded quietly. Zhu Qingwen said, What do you think? Song Ruyu hesitated for a moment. Then she looked back at Qin Ran and said, Sister, you're too tired. Leave a rest to me. Go and have a rest. Qin Ran was a little surprised by Song Ruyu's words. It was obvious that Song Ruyu wanted to drive her away. She was more or less unhappy. After all, she was Qin Sheng's sister and was closer to him than Song Ruyu. What could she not listen to? Zhu Qingwen seemed to understand what Song Ruyu meant. She said lightly, Ran, go inside and have a rest. I'll tell you if anything happens. Since Qin Ran had said so, Qin Ran had to get up and go inside, no matter how reluctant she was. After Qin Ran left, Zhu Qingwen looked at Song Ruyu and said, Ruyu, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. Song Ruyu had almost analyzed the whole thing. She said honestly, Annie, you also know that the hope is getting smaller and smaller, right? Zhu Qingwen was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that Song Ruyu would be so direct and say out what was on everyone's mind. Zhu Qingwen didn't hide it anymore. She said directly, At least, if he's alive or dead, I want to see him, right? Song Ruyu said, Auntie, if he was still in Ningbo, he would have been found a long time ago. I'd rather believe that he's still alive and disappeared on purpose than see a dead body. That's right, Zhu Qingwen said in a self-mocking tone. I also hope so. I hope that he left on purpose. However, Lao Chong should have told you about the situation. There are only 2 bodyguards by Qin Sheng's side. The killer's strength is above Lao Chang's. Plus, they came here prepared. The strength of the others is also not simple. Can Qin Sheng really leave alive? At this time, Song Ruyu said, Annie, how do you explain how the old man and the other killers died? Did Qin Sheng have the ability to kill them and run away in such a short time? Even if he did run away, he must have been seriously injured, and it would be easy to find him. What if there were other killers? Zhu Qingwen said. Song Ruyu shook her head and said, It's impossible for there to be other killers. With such a tight net, if there were other killers, they would have been found long ago. Moreover, even if Qin Sheng was really dead, they could still take his corpse with them. Zhu Qingwen didn't expect that Song Ruyu could analyze everything so clearly and logically, as if she had understood everything in an instant. Zhu Qingwen stared at Song Ruyu and said, What do you mean? I believe that Qin Sheng is fine. It's very likely that he was rescued by someone. I don't know who it is, but the person who rescued him is definitely not simple. Otherwise, he wouldn't have escaped the police's tracking. Song Ruyu said firmly. That was why she hadn't said anything along the way. She had been analyzing the whole thing. After hearing Song Ruyu's words, Zhu Qingwen was instantly lost in thought. At this time, Chang Baji also said, I think so too. Chang Baji had said this to Zhu Qingwen, but Zhu Qingwen didn't believe him. Zhu Qingwen was lost in thought. She just sat there without saying a word, and no one disturbed her. After a long time, Zhu Qingwen gritted her teeth and said, If it's true, we only have to wait for a week. If we can't find any trace of Qin Sheng within this week, we can only go back to Beijing and hope that he can come back safely. Song Ruyu had no objection to this arrangement. If it went on like this, the situation would only be disadvantageous to the Qin family, the Zhu family, and the Song family. After Zhu Qingwen finished speaking, Song Ruyu directly changed the topic and said, Annie, from now on, we have more important things to prepare for. Since they dared to do this, they have to bear the consequences. Zhu Qingwen was stunned again when she heard this. She didn't expect that Song Ryu would be more anxious than her. Chapter 1096. The day before the storm, though Song Ryu had just arrived in Ningbo, she had only listened to Chang Baji's retelling of what had happened. She had not been to the scene, but she had analyzed everything clearly and logically. Chang Baji, Zhu Qingwen, and Gong Sun, who were involved in the case, were stunned. They could not help but admire her. The onlookers saw the game more clearly than the players. However, it seemed that Song Ryu was also involved in the game. How could she be so calm? Zhu Qingwen could only think that Song Ryu was too strong-willed. Ordinary people might have broken down after the incident, but Song Ryu was able to restrain all her emotions and face the matter calmly. She was even able to find the logic behind it. It was not only because Song Ryu had grown up in such an environment, but also because of her working environment. Not to mention the pressure of work, she had to be calm and strong enough to deal with all kinds of big shots. Chang Baji also admired Song Ryu very much. He had analyzed the possibility, but did not dare to make a judgment at all. Maybe his identity was different from Song Ryu's, or maybe he had not figured out the logic behind it. However, Song Ryu was able to analyze it in such a short time. How could Chang Baji not admire her? As for Gong Sun, he just listened quietly and did not say anything. He thought that Song Ryu was more suitable than anyone else to be the future hostess of the Qin family. She was like Qin Sheng's mother, who had a strong heart and confidence under her weak appearance. If Qin Sheng's mother had still been alive, the Qin family would not have been in such a situation. I will discuss this with your uncle and uncle. At least it is not the right time yet. We should try our best to find Qin Sheng first. Although Zhu Qingwen was surprised, she did not say it too directly. Some things were not so simple. Song Ryu, of course, understood what he meant. She said in a low voice, "Small aunt, I understand." All the people present were smart, so they did not have to say it out loud. At this time, Gong Sun said, "Girl, it is useless for me to stay here. I will go back to Beijing first." Why would Gong Sun go back to Beijing? Putting aside the fact that the matters in Shenzhen and Dalian were not over yet, if they were to take action, the Qin family would definitely take action as well. At least in the business field, the Qin family was considered to be somewhat capable. Gong Sun took the initiative to ask Song Ryu. Obviously, he had already regarded Song Ryu as the mistress of the Qin family. Zhao Anji didn't have so much energy, and Qin Ran was exhausted. Song Ryu stepped forward. With her identity and background, she would definitely become the pillar of the Qin family. However, what Gong Sun was most worried about was that everyone had guessed wrong. If something really happened to Qin Sheng, what would Song Ryu do in the future? Her identity as the fiancée of the Qin family would be a little awkward. By then, the Qin family would not be able to have such a mistress. Song Ryu said calmly, "Uncle Gong Sun, thank you for your hard work." Since Gong Sun had asked, Song Ryu didn't refuse. She subconsciously regarded herself as a member of the Qin family. Gong Sun nodded silently. He packed up his things and was ready to go back to Beijing with Nangong. No matter how many people stayed here, it would be useless. Moreover, Chang Baji and Zhuang Zhou, the two tycoons, would be safe. After talking about these things, Zhu Qingwen went to the Municipal Public Security Bureau. She was mainly responsible for communicating with the authorities. The tycoons of the provincial and municipal departments only recognized her. Chang Baji went to meet Hao Lei and the others. It was useless for them to stay in the hotel. It was better to continue looking for Qin Sheng. At this time, Song Ryu walked into the bedroom, only to see Qin Ran sitting on the bed in a daze. She was still a little depressed. Song Ryu walked over slowly and comforted her. "Sister Ran, are you angry?" Qin Ran shook her head and said, "No, why would I be angry?" Having been in the system for so long, Song Ryu could know what the leaders were thinking even if they looked at each other. She had deliberately arranged for Qin Ran just now. How could Qin Ran not be angry? After sitting down, Song Ryu held Qin Ran's hand and said in a low voice, "Sister, you are too tired. Have a good rest. I will take care of the rest." Qin Ran was not so stingy. She just said, "As long as I can find Qin Sheng, I don't care how tired I am." Otherwise, how can I explain to Grandma, old man, and Mom? It took me a lot of effort to find him. How could I lose him again? As she spoke, Qin Ran's eyes turned red again. These days, whenever she mentioned Qin Sheng, she couldn't help crying. Song Ryu held Qin Ran in her arms and said, "Sister Ran, believe me, Qin Sheng will be fine. You don't have to comfort me. Even if it's the worst result, I can accept it. Maybe this is his fate. He's destined to have a hard life," Qin Ran said, holding back her tears. Could she really accept the worst result? Obviously, she could not. Song Ryu said sincerely, "Sister, even if Qin Sheng is really gone, you will always be my sister. The Qin family is also my family." Hearing Song Ryu's words, Qin Ran was very moved, whether Song Ryu really thought so or it just comforted her. However, if Qin Sheng was gone, would Song Ryu stay single for the rest of her life? Obviously, she wouldn't. Even if Song Ryu thought so, would the Song family be willing? Neither would the Qin family. "I'm sorry that you've been wronged," Qin Ran said from the bottom of her heart. There were too many meanings in her words. Song Ryu didn't say anything. She just held Qin Ran in her arms and patted her shoulder gently. Everyone hoped that Qin Sheng would be fine. Of course, she was the same. However, everyone was afraid that something would really happen. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a week passed by quickly. In Ningbo, after such a great effort, they still couldn't find Qin Sheng, not even a trace. Everyone was a little surprised. Where on earth had Qin Sheng gone? They wanted to see him, dead or alive. However, they didn't see him or his body. What the hell was going on? Everyone was a little disappointed. The longer they waited, the worse their mood became. However, they had to accept the fact. However, something gave them hope again. The autopsy reports of the 7 corpses came out. Most of them had died from fatal knife wounds. These knife wounds also showed that they had fought fiercely before they died. However, the cause of death of 2 of the corpses was strange, especially the old man who died last. He had died from many vital acupoints on his body being killed by a foreign object. At the same time, it was found that the 2 corpses had inhaled poisonous gas. This clue completely verified Changbaji and Song Ryu's speculation. That was, apart from the 2 parties involved, there were other unknown people. It was highly possible that these suspicious people had rescued Qin Sheng or killed Qin Sheng. However, how powerful was Lao Gui? Who could kill Lao Gui? This was another doubtful point. These clues were all confidential, and naturally, they would not be announced to the public. Only a small number of people knew about them. In the end, after a discussion, the Zhu family finally decided to stop the large-scale search. They only let the regular search in Zhujiang continue. If there were other clues, they would make further plans. As a result, the Qin family had to leave Ningbo. Only 2 or 3 people stayed in Ningbo to cooperate with the police. On the day they left Ningbo, no one said anything. No one knew whether it was good or bad that they didn't find Qin Sheng. If they didn't find Qin Sheng, it meant that Qin Sheng might still be alive. This was the so-called good result. If they found Qin Sheng's corpse, all hope would be shattered. The bad result was that they didn't know whether the unknown people were friends or enemies. If they were friends, Qin Sheng would come back sooner or later. If they were enemies, it would be an unsolved case. Although the search for Qin Sheng temporarily came to an end, the Real Storm seemed to have just begun. However, this time, Qin Sheng couldn't participate in it. During the period of searching for Qin Sheng, except for the big movements in Ningbo, the other places seemed to be very calm. It was so quiet that people felt a little strange. Everyone knew that this was the sign before the storm. Qin Sheng had such a big accident and disappeared completely. No one knew whether he was alive or not. How could the Qin family let it go? What about the Zhu family and the Song family? Song Ryu went back to Beijing with Qin Ran and the others. Zhu Qingwen went back to Shanghai first and then went to Beijing. This time, her husband, Zhu Changshun, went with her. Beijing. During this week, Zhu Weigua didn't leave Beijing, which was rare. He went to the hospital to visit the old lady and the old master of the Song family. Sanya, Hainan. Qin Changxing knew everything that had happened in Ningbo, but he didn't take any action. Old Master, he couldn't figure out what Qin Changxing was thinking. After all, it was the only son of the Qin family who had been in trouble. After all the Qin family left Beijing, one day, Qin Changxing finally made a call. Top. Chapter 1097. A full-scale war because He Wei and Fu Rong were in Ningbo. Old Master, he knew everything that happened in Ningbo immediately. No one from the Qin family contacted Qin Changxing, nor did anyone inform Qin Changxing. Therefore, it was Old Master he who kept in touch with Qin Changxing. However, Qin Changxing didn't make any movements. This made Old Master he a little uneasy. In the end, he went to Sanya from Beijing to talk to Qin Changxing. Old Master he had been in Sanya for the past 2 days. He told Qin Changxing about the situation in Ningbo every day, but Qin Changxing only nodded and did not say anything. Old Master he became more and more anxious. He could not figure out what Qin Changxing was thinking. The Zhu family and the Song family could not wait anymore. How could Qin Changxing be so calm? It was not until the end of the week and everyone left Ningbo that Qin Changxing had a heart-to-heart talk with Old Master he. On the balcony, Old Master he sat opposite Qin Changxing and asked seriously, "It's been a week. It's almost impossible for him to be alive. He is the only heir of the Qin family. Are you really not going to do anything?" Qin Changxing was still so calm. He had been in Wutai Mountain for so many years, and his temperament had been tempered. Even if it was such a big thing, Qin Changxing did not feel anything. "Old he, if your only grandson died, what would you do?" Qin Changxing asked. Old Master he replied, "Honestly, I'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Even if I have to injure the enemy 1,000 times and lose 10,000 times, I will not hesitate. No matter how powerful the other party is, the He family will fight to the end. Old he, if you would do this, why can't I? Moreover, it's old and new hatred. No matter how good my temper is, I can't stand it," Qin Changxing said slowly. Old Master he shook his head and said, "I don't see it. I'm just waiting," Qin Changxing said with his eyes squinted. Old Master he said subconsciously, "You're waiting for the Zhu family and the Song family to take action? Since you know it, why are you still urging me? If the Zhu family and the Song family don't do anything, the Qin family won't do anything. This time, we want to settle the score. The Qin family isn't strong enough, but the Zhu family and the Song family are. This time, they didn't just offend the Qin family, but the Zhu family and the Song family." Old Master he asked doubtfully, "The Zhu and Song families will go all out. There's no need to talk about the Zhu family. I've already said that it's old and new hatred. Do you really think that Zhu Weigua has only cared about being an official all these years? The reason why Zhu Weigua did not take any action until now was that he was waiting for an opportunity. Firstly, he was waiting for the other party to reveal a flaw. Secondly, he was waiting for Zhu Changshan to further consolidate his strength. Now, although the former had already appeared, if they took action against Qin Sheng, they would be challenging the Zhu clan's bottom line. How could Zhu Weigua tolerate that? Old Master he thought about it and agreed. After all, Qin Sheng was the nephew of the Zhu family. Old Lady Zhu was still alive. Zhu Weigua could bear it, but Old Lady Zhu could not bear it. What about the Song family? Old Master he continued to ask. Qin Changxing said slowly, "As long as the Zhu family takes action, the Song family will definitely not ignore it. As long as Old Master Song says something, as long as Song Ryu really treats Qin Sheng as her fiancé, it will be fine. The Song family cares about their reputation." Although Old Master he felt a little relieved after hearing this, he could not help but ask, "Do you mean that if the Song family and the Zhu family take action, you don't have to do anything?" At this time, Qin Changxing suddenly stood up. He looked at the sea in the distance, which had begun to surge up and down, and said, "Qin Sheng is my nephew and the only heir of the Qin family. They have done such a cruel thing to Qin Sheng. As his uncle, how could I not care about it? Not only will I care about it, but I will also poke a hole in the sky and see how many demons and ghosts are behind it." When he said this, Qin Changxing no longer had that extraordinary temperament. Instead, he was full of murderous aura. Old Master he's eyes were burning. After so many years, The Qin Changxing of the past had finally appeared. This was the real Qin Changxing. He had no choice but to say, this time, the He family will go all out and advance and retreat together with the Qin family. Qin Changxing did not say anything. This was what the He family should do. Besides, opportunity and danger coexisted. If the Qin family won, then the He family would go one step further, because this time the He family might be on the same boat as the Zhu family and the Song family. After Old Master Yi left, Qin Changxing still stood on the balcony, looking at the sea and looking into the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. The sky gradually darkened, not because it was dark, but because the sky was covered by dark clouds. The wind began to blow violently, and the waves on the sea were even more turbulent. A storm was coming. Qin Changxing said thoughtfully, "Is she really going to die like this? That's impossible. Your grandfather calculated for you. If she really died like this, the Qin family will have no heir. It can't be. She disappeared just like that. It's too strange. The only explanation is that she appeared." Qin Changxing thought for a long time before saying this. In the entire Qin family, only he knew about the existence of that woman. Except for her, I really can't think of anyone else. You are bound to have good fortune after surviving a great disaster. It's not so easy for you to die. But since this thing has happened, it's actually good for her to disappear. You just happen to avoid the sharp wind and waves. Just take it as a ruse. It's time for us old guys to settle the score. In the future, the Qin family will be the new Qin family. How you go is up to you. This time, Qin Changxing made up his mind. After sorting out all the clues, Qin Changxing got up and went back to his room to call the long-lost phone number. Although some friends had not seen or contacted for many years, they were still friends after all. The next morning, Qin Changxing set off for Jing City. On the same day, Mr. Ding also returned to Jing City. The people of the Qin family met Qin Changxing and Mr. Ding without knowing, which made them overjoyed. The news that Qin Changxing and Mr. Ding returned to Jing City spread like wildfire. Everyone was shocked. Everyone knew why they came back. For Qin Sheng, for the Qin family. That night, the Qin family held an internal meeting. Zhao Anji and Qin Ren both quit the company. Mr. Ding took full charge of all the affairs of the Qin family. Gong Sun and Zhuang Zhou took everyone to Dalian and Shenzhen respectively. At the same time, Qin Changxing went to visit his only brother, Qin Chang'an. They did not exchange greetings and just talked about what had happened recently. Qin Changxing did not hide anything and directly told Qin Chang'an about Qin Sheng's accident. When hearing the news, Qin Chang'an did not speak for a long time. At that moment, Qin Chang'an became a lot older. At that moment, Qin Chang'an regretted bringing Qin Sheng back to the Qin family. Maybe the old master's arrangement was the most correct. In the end, Qin Changxing said that he was ready to take action. Qin Chang'an came to his senses and said, "Do whatever you want." He had lost his son. What was there to be afraid of? At this time, the news of Qin Sheng's accident and disappearance had been known to everyone. No one could hide it anymore. The first person Qin Changxing visited was the old master of the Song family. At that time, Song Ryu was accompanying the old master in the hospital. When Song Ryu saw Qin Changxing, she greeted him politely, "Eldest uncle," which made Qin Changxing feel quite relieved. He sighed and said, "Ryu, I'm sorry to have made you suffer." After entering the ward, old Master Song asked everyone to leave and chatted with Qin Changxing for more than an hour. As for what they talked about, no one knew. No one knew if Qin Changxing had told old Master Song about Qin Sheng's accident, let alone what Qin Changxing had said. Only Qin Changxing knew that he had reached a series of consensus with the old master. When Qin Changxing walked out of the ward, Song Ryu was still waiting outside. Qin Changxing walked slowly to her and said, "You don't need to go to the State Administration Office. I have discussed it with Senior Song. I think the Central Administration Office is more suitable for you. As for your teacher, someone will inform him. You don't need to worry." Although it was just a few words, Song Ryu was somewhat at a loss after visiting old Master Song. Qin Changxing did not rashly disturb old Lady Zhu. He also knew that even if old Lady Zhu knew that he was back, she might not want to see him. Moreover, the Zhu family would definitely hide Qin Sheng's accident from old lady Zhu. Everyone could know about it, except for old lady Zhu. Unless the Zhu family could not hide it anymore, Qin Chongqing would definitely show up at that time. However, Qin Chongqing had to meet other members of the Zhu family, even if he did not meet old lady Zhu. That was because the Zhu family was the real main force in this protracted struggle. That night, the two sides met at the Zhu family small building. Zhu Weiguo, Zhu Chongshun, and Zhu Qingwen were all there. Qin Chongqing once again used his methods to convince the Zhu family to agree to his next series of plans. In return, he also agreed to one of the Zhu family's requests, which was that he would do his best in a certain matter for the Zhu family. Qin Chongqing did not refuse, because as long as the Zhu family went further, the Qin family would go further. Within this week, rumors were everywhere in Suzhou City. The outside world did not know what would happen next. However, they were also looking forward to it. After all, it was always good to be an onlooker. As onlookers, they all thought that sixth uncle and his group were the murderers behind scenes. However, those who were involved knew that the real boss was Elder Long and the series of forces behind him. What were sixth uncle and his group busy with during this period? After Gongsun Zhuangzhou of the Qin family returned to Shenzhen and Dalian, sixth uncle and the others left without hesitation. They completely abandoned He Yong and Song Shixin because they became the victims of sixth uncle and the others' goodwill to the Qin family. Therefore, it only took Qin Changzhou a week to solve the problems in Shenzhen and Dalian. He Yong and Song Shixin almost left their families with nothing because no one could protect them unless they wanted to spend the rest of their lives in prison. The Qin family did not kill them all because they had other things to do. More and more things happened, and more storms were brewing. First of all, the Chong and family was taken over. Previously, the Embark only suspended the management rights of the Chong and family. At the same time, the Embark investigated the capital transactions of the shareholders behind the Chong and family in a series of related insider trading. The former directors and senior executives of the Chong and family were all taken away for investigation. Sixth uncle, Su family, Ziyuan, and other family members, including sixth uncle, were already trembling. Secondly, Mr. Ding used his power in the business world to start a full-scale attack on the capital of Elder Long. After the accident in Chong and family, Elder Long's capital was already in trouble. At this time, it was the best time to take action. Only Mr. Ding had such great power, courage, and strength. Finally, after the Zhu and Song families took action one after another, the two ministerial-level bosses behind Elder Long were suddenly investigated. At this point, the Qin family, the Zhu family, and the Song family officially declared a full-scale war against Elder Long Top. Chapter 1098. 3 years later, Chengdu, the land of Heavenly Province, was a city that people didn't want to leave. As the saying goes, young people don't enter Sichuan and old people don't leave Sichuan. The pace of life in this city was very slow, and people here knew how to enjoy life. This was one of the most leisurely cities in the country. In addition to countless delicious food, there were also countless beautiful women. As everyone knew, Sichuan and Chongqing had produced beautiful women since ancient times. Looking at the streets, there were all kinds of beautiful women, enough to dazzle the eyes and make the heart of a foreign man burst with joy. For men, this was a city that they didn't want to leave. Who would be willing to leave? Every city had its own flavor, and Chengdu gave people the feeling of a young girl who had her first awakening of love. It was fresh, refined, and intelligent. It didn't have the enthusiasm of coastal cities, nor did it have the vicissitudes of old cities, nor did it have the vulgarity and boredom of some cities. It was a city that bloomed with vitality and vitality. Most importantly, in recent years, this city had developed very rapidly. Whether it was the scale of the city or the process of modernization, it had become the big brother of the central and western regions. The most competitive thing was the consumption power of the city, which was second only to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Hangzhou. Every city had its own charm, and every city also had its own story. However, most of the people living in this city were ordinary people. They lived ordinary lives and worked hard for their dreams. Of course, there were also many powerful people who stood at the top of the pyramid. They were the legends of this city. The consumption power of Chengdu was very strong, and the online shopping ability was even stronger. Every year, all kinds of online shopping festivals could be ranked in the top 5. Therefore, there were many express delivery men in this city. Every day, they passed through the streets and alleys to serve thousands of families. Li Xiang was one of the thousands of express delivery men in this city. However, Li Xiang was different from the other express delivery men because he got off work at 6 o'clock every day. Every week, he had 2 weekends off. It was said that because he had a beautiful aunt, the boss gave him special treatment. Of course, Li Xiang's salary was naturally lower than other colleagues. In the beginning, everyone was somewhat dissatisfied with Li Xiang's special treatment. Later, they heard that Li Xiang had a serious illness and forgot everything in the past. He even had some mental problems. Only after he recovered did he start to work again. Everyone didn't say much about it. Think about it. A man in his 30s who has no car, no house, no marriage, and no job. How miserable would that be? It wouldn't be pitiful. Moreover, in the express delivery industry, the more you do, the more you get. Everyone relies on their own abilities to earn money. Li Xiang is only here to train his living skills. Why bother with him? After 2 months, Li Xiang had already gained a firm foothold here, and his relationship with everyone was very good. Because he usually had a good character and was very kind to others, so everyone was very fond of this 32-year-old young man. It was said that the lady boss had recently introduced a girlfriend to him. Li Xiang, you've been getting off work on time recently. Are you dating someone? The boss of the express delivery station, Huang Su, said half-jokingly. He had been working here for several years and was the right-hand man of the express delivery station's boss. He had recently bought a house in Chengdu, and his wife and children finally had a place to stay. Although Li Xiang was not very handsome, he had a kind of thought-provoking vicissitudes of life. The more people looked at him, the more they felt that he was very interesting. In addition, he was usually dressed in simple and clean clothes. The few female colleagues at the express station loved to make fun of him, which made others somewhat envious. Li Xiang smiled mischievously and did not say anything. He just rode his beloved motorcycle home from work. His aunt was still waiting for him to eat. Li Xiang's workplace was very close to the place where he lived. He usually delivered packages in this area. This was specially arranged by the boss. He was also afraid that Li Xiang would not be familiar with the surrounding environment. However, after 2 months, Li Xiang had already run around this area. Although he had forgotten those things from the past, he was very smart. Especially his memory was very good. Many people he had only met once, he could remember the phone number and appearance. In addition, he had good looks, temperament, and also knew how to conduct himself. Therefore, all the neighbors in this neighborhood liked him very much. However, what made everyone curious was Li Xiang's beautiful aunt. She opened a small bookstore in the neighborhood next door. Whether it was inside or outside the store, it was filled with all kinds of flowers and plants. There were also 2 cute stray cats in the store. His aunt would drink tea and read books upstairs every day. She never cared about the bookstore's business. Everyone said that the bookstore would be closed soon, not to mention that there was not a lot of traffic here. Secondly, there were only a few bookstores that were making money. Moreover, most of the books sold in the store were old books. Even though the business was very bad, his aunt still hired a little girl to look after the shop. The girl was quite pretty and had a very natural scholarly aura. Perhaps it was because his aunt's salary was not low that she came to work here. Otherwise, how many young girls would be able to persevere in such a boring job? Not long after, Li Xiang rode his electric bike back to the bookstore. The girl who was taking care of the flowers and plants at the door smiled and said, "Brother Li Xiang, you are off work." June in Chengdu was very sultry. The girl with a ponytail wore a floral long dress and small white shoes. She looked very young and pure. Li Xiang parked the bike and casually asked, "Ning, how was business today?" Speaking of business, the girl named Ning pouted and said, "Not good. Except for selling 2 pots of flowers, I didn't sell any books. What Ning was most worried about was that she would only stay here for a few days before the bookstore closed. Who could persist in such a bleak business? If her aunt was not her benefactor, Ning would not have found such a job with no future. Of course, her aunt gave her a high salary. Sometimes she felt that her aunt was helping her because of her family's affairs. Every time she thought of this, Ning felt that she should work hard so that she could be worthy of her aunt. It's okay. We have just opened for a month. Business will be better. Li Xiang comforted Ning. He knew that Ning had been worried about the bookstore. Who asked his aunt to not care about anything? Ning did not think too much about it. Maybe it would be better after a period of time. She put down the kettle in her hand and said, "Well, it will be better. Hurry up and go upstairs to eat, or Aunt will scold us again later." Li Xiang patted Ning on the shoulder and said he had already regarded this kind and innocent little girl as his younger sister. After all, he had no other relatives except his aunt. Li Xiang kept asking his aunt about his previous life. He could only remember the things in the past 2 or 3 years. His aunt had been living with him in a small town on the border of Sichuan and Tibet. His health had always been very poor. He insisted on taking medicine every day. He always felt that he was a burden to his aunt, but his aunt never said anything. Until 2 months ago, his aunt said that his body had completely recovered. Maybe he could still remember the things of the past. Then they moved from there to Chengdu to start a new life. Li Xiang liked living here very much. He could see all kinds of people every day and hear all kinds of interesting stories. Unlike when he lived in a small mountain town on the border of Sichuan and Tibet, his aunt almost never let him go out, so he had no friends. Except for playing the guitar, listening to songs, watching movies, and reading books every day, it seemed that there was nothing else to do. Therefore, this kind of life was very lonely, so he liked the life in Chengdu now. When they went upstairs, Auntie had already laid out the dishes. They were all dishes that Li Xiang and Ning liked to eat. Ning liked this kind of small family more and more. Auntie was like her mother, and Li Xiang was like her brother. Compared to the impersonal family, she liked the life here more. On the second floor of the bookstore, there was a tea room, a lounge, and a kitchen. Every day, his aunt cooked by herself. Li Xiang would occasionally cook on the weekend, but his cooking skills were still a little worse than his aunt's. Neither Li Xiang nor Ning knew what his aunt's name was. It seemed that they had never cared about this problem. Ning had always followed Li Xiang to call her aunt, and his aunt had never taken the initiative to talk about it. "Aunt, I'm back," Li Xiang shouted after going upstairs. Not far away, a woman dressed very simply but very elegant smiled and nodded. She said, "Then hurry up and eat. The food is going to be cold." She was Li Xiang's aunt, the woman who the boss of the express station could not forget, the woman who made the neighbors in the neighborhood click their tongues in wonder, and the woman who attracted a lot of playboys. Unfortunately, no one knew who this woman was. While eating, his aunt suddenly asked calmly, "Li Xiang, are you going to be a resident singer in a while?" "Yes, it starts at 8 o'clock," Li Xiang replied without raising his head. But after he said this, he suddenly realized that he had not told his aunt that he was going to be a resident singer. If his aunt knew this, wouldn't she scold him to death? Li Xiang raised his head weakly and said, "Aunt, you know all about it? Go. It's not a bad thing to meet more people, but remember not to drink. Your body has not completely recovered." Unexpectedly, his aunt did not reprimand or stop him, but said so. Li Xiang was stunned for a few seconds, more or less surprised. This was different from what he had expected, but he still said happily, "Thank you, Aunt." "Brother Li Xiang, were you going to be a resident singer, Jian Bridge, or somewhere else? If I have time, I also want to see you sing." Ning was so scared that she did not dare to speak. Hearing that his aunt let her go, she raised her head and squinted her eyes. Li Xiang said impatiently, "Little girl, why are you going to the bar? Stay in the bookstore." "Oh." Ning pouted. She was not very happy. After the meal, Ning was washing the dishes, his aunt was reading in the tea room, and Li Xiang was playing with the 2 kittens at the door of the bookstore. One was called Ji, the other was called Iya. The names were given by Li Xiang. He thought that Ji was very nice, and he often asked Ning if he was good at naming and if he needed to change her name. Ning was so scared that she quickly left. When it was almost time, Li Xiang went home, carried his guitar, and rode his beloved small motorcycle to Jian Bridge. They lived in the community on the side of Shu-Du Avenue, which was not far from Jian Bridge. As night fell, the lights in the city began to fade. For Chengdu, the most famous city for its nightlife, the real life had just begun. Li Xiang had experienced the scene of waiting in line at 2 o'clock in the morning at a hot pot restaurant, which showed how much people in Chengdu like to enjoy life. Carrying a guitar and riding a small motorcycle, the breeze was blowing. It was very comfortable. Li Xiang liked this kind of life very much. It was carefree, comfortable, and fulfilling, much happier than the life in a small town. In a vast sea of people, in a big city with tens of millions of people, Li Xiang was just an inconspicuous nobody. No one would care about what kind of story this ordinary nobody had. Just like Lu Yao said, people would rather care about the daily life of a lousy actor than to understand the magnificent inner world of an ordinary person. However, who would have known that 3 years ago, because of this small person, there was a storm that involved countless people, and this storm has not ended until today. Chapter 1099. He must be alive. Chengdu was more bustling at night than during the day. Especially in the summer, whether it was the pedestrian street of Chunxi Road, the bar street of Jian Bridge, the most famous nightclubs in Chengdu, or the famous hot pot restaurants and fly shops. All of them were crowded with people, and it was very lively. Li Xiang was riding his beloved motorcycle through the streets and alleys. He was more and more fond of this colorful city, and he liked the present substantial enjoyment even more. Every day, he could meet all kinds of people and hear all kinds of interesting stories. He really didn't know how he lived in the past, but this kind of life now was quite good. Not long after, Li Xiang arrived at the bar street of Jian Bridge. He casually parked his motorcycle on the side of the road. There were many cars parked here, so he wasn't afraid of losing it. Moreover, there were so many people, and there were also surveillance cameras. Which thief would be so daring? Carrying his guitar, he walked into the bar street. This street was so lively no matter whether it was spring, summer, autumn, winter, wind, or rain. Especially during holidays, it was even more crowded. It was the same on summer nights. Everyone came out to drink and enjoy the wind, and the most eye-catching thing on this street were those beauties. It was really impossible to know how many beauties there were in Chengdu. Although Li Xiang also liked to look at beautiful girls, he didn't have any special thoughts about them. Perhaps it was because he had been with his aunt for a long time. What kind of beauty could enter his discerning eyes? Moreover, there was Ning now. The fresh and refined Ning was definitely a great beauty. It was said that there were many boys chasing after Ning, but Ning didn't seem to be moved by any of them. Carrying a guitar, Li Xiang was not ordinary. The eyes of many beauties would stay on him for a few seconds. Who asked this man to have a kind of vicissitude temperament, especially the back view of carrying a guitar? He was like a wandering singer who had experienced the ups and downs of the prosperous world and finally returned to the streets. After arriving at the bar, Li Xiang politely greeted the manager and the security guards. This bar was relatively big in Jian Bridge. It had a total of 3 floors. Each floor was 200 square meters. Each floor also had a resident singer. It was just that each floor had a different style. The hall on the first floor was mostly filled with young bands singing pop songs. There were Chinese songs and English songs. The second floor was rock and roll. The customers here were more complicated. There were old people and young people. The drinks here were also the best-selling. The third floor was the more common folk song bar in Jian Bridge. Compared to other bars in Jian Bridge, there were fewer customers on the third floor. Perhaps the location was not very good. After all, it was on the remote third floor. Or perhaps people didn't know. After all, many people came to the first floor and saw that it was full. Not to mention how comfortable it was to sit in a bar facing the street. But recently, because of Li Xiang's arrival, there were more customers on the third floor than before. Many of them were returning customers, and they would even take the initiative to greet Li Xiang. The boss couldn't help but be happy with the decision he made. The reason why Li Xiang could come here to sing was that the boss of the express delivery station recommended him. He happened to hear him play the guitar and sing quite well, so he said that Li Xiang was quite suitable for singing. After all, singing here was more profitable than the express delivery. He only needed to sing for half an hour, and he could get 300 yuan. How could Li Xiang not be interested? Of course, he also wanted to make more money, which could relieve his aunt's pressure. The bookstore's business was not good. Maybe one day it would be closed. They couldn't go wandering on the street. He could make 300 yuan by singing for half an hour. How could Li Xiang not be interested? The bookstore's business was not good. It might be closed one day. At that time, they couldn't go wandering on the street. It was okay for him to wander alone, but not for his aunt, who was a fairy who didn't eat the food of the world. Li Xiang always felt that this money was his aunt's dowry money. Who let his aunt have a burden like him? No wonder she never got married. Therefore, he had to earn more money and strive to buy a house in Chengdu one day. Then, they would have a real place to stay. Li Xiang, get ready. It's your turn soon. As soon as Li Xiang went to the third floor, the manager in charge of the third floor pulled him and said, Li Xiang said with a smile, everything is ready. No matter if it was folk or rock, he could sing a lot of songs. Every night, he just needed to choose a few songs. Anyway, the third floor was not like the first floor or the second floor. He still needed a band to cooperate with him. But Li Xiang hoped to go to the second floor one day. It was good to shout and shout to his heart's content. Li Xiang also thought that when he was familiar with the bookstore, he could go to a few more bars. For example, if he went to 3 bars every night, he could earn 8 or 900 yuan. Plus, he could work at the courier station during the day. He could earn tens of thousands of yuan every month. This way, he could subsidize the bookstore. But his aunt asked him to go home before 12 o'clock every night. So he could only go to 3 bars at most. He couldn't go too far. He could only go to the GM Bridge. But almost every bar had a fixed singer, so his chance was a little slim. When Li Xiang was playing with the guitar, the greasy manager ran over again and whispered in his ear, Li Xiang, that beauty is here again. I think she has a crush on you. Li Xiang subconsciously looked at the seat next to the window. Sure enough, the girl came again. They just had a little interlude. Why did this girl keep pestering him? It seems like apart from her, there were 2 other close friends today. Li Xiang subconsciously looked at the seat next to the window. Li Xiang just took a glance and came back to his senses. He adjusted the guitar and went on stage. After a simple warm-up, he began to play the guitar. There was not much nonsense or interaction. Li Xiang's voice was a little hoarse. His eyes looked a little vicissitudes, so it was especially suitable to sing folk songs. No wonder there were so many returning customers. The first song was This Life is About You. In the distance, the lights are shining. You are alone on the road with your head down. The bigger the city, the more flustered it is. The more longing it is. The bigger the city, the more flustered it is. The more longing it is. Time makes us weak and strong. Let me sing to you gently again. I want to accompany you more. I want to tell you the scenery of the first half of my life. In every silent night, I will think about the love and hate about you. At the beginning of the song, Li Xiang squinted his eyes and looked very calm. He did not know what he had experienced in the first half of his life. Anyway, he could not remember it. Even if he knew, he did not know who to tell the scenery of the first half of his life to. However, as he sang, countless images suddenly flashed in his mind. These images were clear and blurry. There were things that Li Xiang had never experienced before. He wanted to hold on to them, but he could not. He could only see many figures flashing by. His eyes became more and more painful, as if he had recalled many sad memories. Inexplicably, he felt a little heartache. It was so painful that he could not breathe. Li Xiang insisted on singing until the end of the song. Then he put down the guitar and walked down. The supervisor, Brother Chow, ran over and said, Li Xiang, what's wrong with you? Li Xiang said in pain, Brother Chow, I might not be able to sing tonight. I'm not feeling well. Li Xiang, what do you mean by that? None of the resident singers here dares to quit, Brother Chow said impatiently. It would take another hour for the next resident singer to arrive. If Li Xiang couldn't even hold on for half an hour, wouldn't all the guests have left? Li Xiang knew that it was his fault. It was not appropriate for him to quit. Moreover, the job here was really good. He could not just quit. He could only say, Brother Chow, let me rest for a few minutes. Brother Chow had no choice. If it was not a job, he would not be so strict. He could only give in and said, "Okay, take a rest first. Anyway, half an hour is not less." Li Xiang nodded with a smile. "Thank you for your understanding." Li Xiang found a random seat and sat down. He asked his colleague to pour him a cup of hot water. After he sat down, his eyes were a little blurred. He tried hard to remember who those shadows were. It seemed that he did not know any of them. Could it be that they were his old friends? Because he had forgotten about the past. Should he ask his aunt later? But he did not think that she would tell him. He had asked his aunt several times, but she did not say anything. Just when Li Xiang was in a daze, an uninvited guest suddenly came to him. After she sat down, she said softly, "What's wrong?" Li Xiang looked away and found that it was the beautiful girl who had been here for 3 days. The girl was dressed very beautifully tonight. She was wearing a black dress. Judging from her dressing, she did not seem to be from an ordinary family. After all, he had seen the girl driving a Ferrari that was worth millions of yuan. "What's wrong?" Li Xiang said coldly. The beautiful girl pouted and said, "Nothing. I just want to ask if you have anything to do. You seem a little uncomfortable." "I'm fine," Li Xiang replied straightforwardly. It seemed that he was not interested in such a beautiful girl at all. If other people in the bar knew about this, they would only feel that it was a waste. The beautiful girl did not expect that Li Xiang would be so stubborn. She frowned and said, "Can I buy you a drink? My aunt doesn't allow me to drink." Li Xiang refused directly. The beautiful girl did not expect that she would be rejected again. She had never been rejected by a man for so many years. But this was the second time in front of the man in front of her. She felt a little wronged and replied, "I don't mean anything else. I just want to thank you for saving me that day." "I see," Li Xiang said lightly. Then he said, "If there's nothing else, I'm going to continue singing." After that, Li Xiang stood up and went on the stage to continue singing. In fact, nothing happened that day. When he was about to go back, he met this beautiful girl in the alley behind. She seemed to be in a bad mood after drinking too much. At that time, when she was waiting for the designated driver, she was hit by 3 or 4 drunk men. Li Xiang did not want to make trouble, but he could not ignore such a thing. He had to be a busybody. Originally, he just wanted to scare the 3 drunk men away, who knew that they would fight after drinking too much. Li Xiang had no choice but to deal with them. Although his aunt never allowed him to fight, he did not know why he was so good at martial arts. Anyway, after solving the girl's problem, the girl's designated driver came. Li Xiang directly left with his guitar. When he turned back, he saw that she was leaving in a Ferrari. Who knew that the next day, the girl directly found the bar where he sang. Li Xiang did not know how she found it, but he thought that there must be a way. Then she listened to songs here for 3 days in a row. This made Li Xiang a little troubled, but he did not know what to do. The girl took the initiative to say hello to him several times, but Li Xiang politely rejected her by saying that he wanted to sing or go home. It was the same tonight. Li Xiang had almost recovered. He was not in so much pain, so he began to sing again. The girl had to go back to her seat. One of her best friends, who was dressed very sexy and charming, said, "Cece, no way. You were rejected again? If this is known by everyone, it will definitely be explosive news." Another best friend, who was wearing spaghetti straps and hot pants, said disdainfully, "What's there to be proud of? You're just a stinky loser. What's there to be proud of? You really think you're somebody." The girl called Cece did not say anything. She just sat there quietly and drank. When Li Xiang was almost done singing, she left with her best friend. But she would definitely come again tomorrow. She did not believe that he would ignore her all the time. Humph! After Li Xiang finished singing for half an hour, he directly went home with his guitar. In the past, he would be busy in the bar or go out for a stroll before going home. But tonight, he had no interest at all. On the way home on the small electric scooter, those figures still appeared in Li Xiang's mind. He seemed to have caught one of them. It was a very beautiful woman, more beautiful than many beautiful women he had seen. It seemed that she was not much worse than his aunt. But who was she? Li Xiang did not know. Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. Somewhere in a very expensive mansion, a rather stunning young woman was holding a little girl and flipping through photos. The little girl was very beautiful and lovely. Her big watery eyes could not help but make people feel pity for her. She pointed to a man with a bright smile in the photo and pouted, "Mom, when will Dad come back to see me?" The young woman said softly, "Yuan, Yuan, be good. Dad will be back soon. Dad loves Yuan, Yuan the most." Yuan, Yuan loves Dad too, the little girl said obediently. Although she did not know that she had never seen her father, every time she saw these photos, she felt that her father had always been by her side. So she liked looking at her father's photos very much. The young woman was very pleased and said, "Yuan, Yuan, Mom will take you back to China next month. Do you miss Grandpa and Grandma?" Okay. Yuan, Yuan happily danced and said. At this time, the young woman closed the photo album. Her eyes drifted along the window to the distance. 3 years had passed. Was he really still alive? He must be alive. He must be alive. She firmly believed. Top point. Chapter 1100. A message. This elegant young woman was Lin Su, who had been in the United States for more than 3 years. She had never thought that so many things would happen after she went to the United States. So much so that she almost had the intention to commit suicide for a period of time. It could be seen how much those things had affected her, because she had lost the two people she loved the most in the world. One was her grandmother, who had loved her dearly since she was a child. She did not expect that her grandmother would pass away soon after she went to the United States. It turned out that she could not contact her grandmother because she had passed away and everyone was hiding it from her. When she learned that her grandmother had passed away, it was already more than a month later. This news was like a bolt from the blue, and she could not accept it at all. She did not even see her grandmother for the last time, nor did she have the chance to send her on her last journey. How could she not break down? At first, she blamed everyone for hiding this news, because her grandmother was the one who loved her the most in the world. She could live in a Lin family mostly because of her grandmother's protection. Otherwise, who knew what would happen to her today? Not seeing her grandmother for the last time and sending her on her last journey became the biggest regret of her life. She cried and fainted several times. Fortunately, there were people by her side, whether it was her friends or other members of the Lin family. They all comforted her, especially Sister Qingyan, who stayed by her side all the time. No one expected that her grandmother would pass away so soon. Even if she rushed back at that time, it would be too late. Besides, everyone did it for her and the child, unless she did not want the child anymore. Later, Lin Su gradually accepted and understood it. Just as everyone said, she had to accept it for the sake of the child. But who knew that the next news was even more unacceptable? She then knew that there was another shocking thing that everyone was hiding from her, and that was something happened to Qin Sheng. That day, Lin Su felt that her world had collapsed. She was very sad about her grandmother's death, but she did not expect that there was another thing that she could not accept. The man she loved the most in the world had an accident. She wondered why Qin Sheng did not contact her for such a long time, and she could not reach him no matter how hard she tried. The explanation given by Xue Qingyan and the Lin family was that Qin Sheng was involved in the Chong and matter and was currently cooperating with the investigation. This was also the best and most suitable reason that Xue Qingyan and the Lin family could think of. Although Lin Su was a little worried, she could do nothing about it. It was not until she learned the truth from her friend that she realized that everyone was still hiding it from her. This time, Lin Su was heartbroken. Her grandmother, who loved her the most, passed away, and the man she loved the most went missing. Her world was instantly plunged into darkness. What should she do in the future? During that time, Lin Su's world was gloomy. There were several times when she wanted to end her life, but she was stopped by Xue Qingyan, Lin Yu, and the others. They said that Qin Sheng was just missing and not really dead. What should she do if Qin Sheng came back one day and did not see her? Even if she did not do it for herself, she had to think about the child. That was Qin Sheng's inner child, and Qin Sheng's only flesh and blood. Qin was dead, and Su's Lin was that he would be the world. Lin Su of Qin had a Qin. Moreover, Qin Sheng might not really be dead. If she was so impulsive, what should she do when Qin Sheng came back? At that moment, Lin Su had to give up the idea of suicide. It was not until the child was born that she gradually recovered. How could she be willing to leave this world when she looked at the child that belonged to her and Qin Sheng? The child had no father and mother. What should she do for the rest of her life? She was still so young. She was so pitiful. Therefore, Lin Su felt that she could not be too selfish. Just like that, Lin Su raised her daughter alone in the United States. Although she never lacked friends by her side, she still felt that she was too lonely. Fortunately, her daughter was there, and her world was filled with laughter. What she did the most every day was to tell her daughter stories about her father. She told her that her father was the man who loved her the most in the world. At the same time, she let her daughter see her father's photo every day. She hoped that if Qin Sheng appeared one day, her daughter could recognize him at a glance. She would not feel strange when she saw a stranger all of a sudden. She wanted her daughter to believe that her father was always by her side. Her daughter wanted to take a nap. After coaxing her daughter to sleep, Lin Su came out of the bedroom because Xue Qingyan would be here soon. Lin Yu was also in the United States to accompany Lin Su. The Lin family moved their United States branch to Los Angeles. Lin Su and Lin Yu were in charge here, so that they would not be too bored in the United States. With the support of relevant resources from the Qin family, the Lin family's investment business in the United States was doing very well. Lin Yu had also changed from the little girl at the beginning to a strong career woman. She went to other places on business every week, while Lin Su stayed in Los Angeles most of the time because she wanted to accompany her daughter. Lin Su worked in the living room for a while, and the nanny came in with Xue Qingyan. The servants in the villa were all Chinese. They had lived in the United States for many years, so they were relatively more at ease. Lin Su had not seen Xue Qingyan for half a year. Now Xue Qingyan was more intellectual and mature, but she was still single. Many people were a little confused, but no one knew that her heart had already belonged to someone else. Xue Qingyan was wearing a white silk sleeveless shirt and a black skirt. She walked in rhythmically in high heels. At this time, Lin Su smiled and stood up. "Sister, didn't you finish your work later? I missed Yuan, so I came here after the meeting with the investors." Xue Qingyan put down the bag in her hand and kicked off her high-heeled shoes. She was barefooted, and her delicate feet were really tempting. Lin Su was dressed more casually at home. She laughed and said, Yuan just fell asleep. I'll wake her up later." Xue Qingyan sat next to Lin Su and replied, "It's okay. Let the baby continue to sleep. Anyway, I have to stay in Los Angeles for a few days." The two beautiful women had not seen each other for half a year. Naturally, they had a lot to talk about. They held hands and talked about family affairs. In the end, Lin Su could not help but ask, "Sister, is there any news about him?" Xue Qingyan was silent for a moment and said slowly, "This is also what I wanted to talk to you about. I just learned from the Qin family 2 days ago that there is some news about him. But at present, this news has not been confirmed. The Qin family still needs to verify." "Really? It must be him. I know he is still alive." Lin Su was excited when she heard the news. Xue Qingyan did not want Lin Su to expect too much. She said lightly, "If it is him, why hasn't he contacted us for 3 years? Does he know how many people have been suffering in these 3 years? Maybe he has his own difficulties." Lin Su could only comfort herself. Xue Qingyan had to say, "Maybe." Late at night, in Chengdu, Li Xiang had already returned to the community on a small electric scooter. If he were in Los Angeles at this moment, he would definitely be able to recognize the two women because they were the memory fragments that floated through his mind. If he saw the thick stack of photos, he would definitely be shocked and ask, "Isn't this me?" After entering the door, Li Xiang put down the guitar and said, "Aunt, I'm back." The calm woman walked out of the master bedroom and said, "You didn't drink, did you?" No, and said, "I can't drink it. How could I dare?" Li Xiang laughed mischievously. The woman nodded silently and said, "That's good." Then she said, "Li Xiang, tomorrow I will go far away. It may be a few days before I come back. When you are free, help Ning to look after the store." "Aunt, where are you going?" Li Xiang said in surprise. Although his aunt often disappears, but ever since they came to Chengdu, his aunt has never left. The woman shook her head and said, "Don't ask about other things." After saying these words, the woman directly went back to the room to rest. Li Xiang muttered a few words and also washed up and went to bed. This night, Li Xiang had a very long dream. In the dream, many people appeared. They were all shouting a name that he had never heard before. However, Li Xiang did not know them at all. This made Li Xiang have a splitting headache when he woke up in the morning. But when he woke up, Aunt had already left. Only the breakfast prepared by Aunt was left on the table. Li Xiang hurriedly ate breakfast and went to the express delivery station to work. When he just arrived at the express delivery station, he saw a group of colleagues gathered at the door, discussing something. Li Xiang just rode the electric scooter to the door and was surrounded by this group of colleagues. Huang Su took the lead and said, "Li Xiang, I didn't know that you have such an ability. Tell me honestly, what is the relationship between you and that woman?" TSK, 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 a fair-skinned, rich, and beautiful woman who drives a Ferrari. Don't tell me that she wants to keep our Li Xiang as her mistress. At this time, someone said, "If I had such a girlfriend, I would be willing to die 10,000 times. She has a beautiful face, a good figure, and most importantly, she is rich. How many years can I save?" Li Xiang was a little confused at first, but the more he listened, the clearer it became. When he walked through the door, he saw a familiar Ferrari parked in the yard. A pure girl wearing a white tight short-sleeved shirt and white jeans was standing in the yard, waiting anxiously for something. When Li Xiang saw her, he had a headache. How did she come here? This beauty was not someone else. She was the beauty named Cece who had been waiting for Li Xiang in the bar for several days. At this time, Cece also saw Li Xiang. She showed a bright smile and waved to Li Xiang. At the same time, she walked over quickly. At this moment, Li Xiang was thinking, how could he send her away? Beijing, Dongqing District. In an alley very close to the Qin family Sihiyuan, there was a Sihiyuan tea house. Although the tea was ordinary and not particularly expensive, the tea and snacks were the most authentic in old Beijing. After Qin Chongqing returned to Beijing, he often came here. Now, he was already an old man in his 70s. He wore a hat, put his hands behind his back, and hunched his body. No matter where he went, he looked like an ordinary old man. Today, Qin Chongqing came to the tea house early. After greeting the boss, he went in to wait for someone. After about half an hour, the junior arrived. Qin Chongqing was very familiar with her. Since he returned to Beijing, this girl would come to see him every other day. But recently, she might be too busy, so she did not come to see him. Now, Qin Chongqing took the initiative to ask her out. After the woman with a somewhat cold temperament sat down, she asked bluntly, "Uncle, why are you in such a hurry?" Qin Chongqing did not talk nonsense. He picked up the teacup and said, "I have news." When she heard this, the woman was stunned for a few seconds. Unexpectedly, she could not help but tremble with excitement. Chapter 11:01. Do you think I'm suitable? When will spring flowers and autumn moon end? How much do I know about the past? This dignified and elegant woman with coiled hair was already in her early 30s, but she was still unmarried. There were too many rumors about her in the outside world. Back then, she was the god's favored girl in Suzhou City. She was beautiful, had a superior family background, and was brimming with talent. No one knew how many young men in Suzhou City were attracted to her. However, she didn't like anyone and finally chose an unexpected man, a man she had waited for many years. Unexpectedly, fate played a joke on her again. The happiness brought by the short reunion was followed by endless waiting. Until now, she was still waiting for that man. Although they were only engaged, when others asked about her, she would always say that she was married. Every time this happened, people would always sigh. Also, people always asked her if it was worth it. She said that this was her life. She didn't believe that God would be so harsh to her. Of course, the reason why she could keep waiting was that the eldest uncle opposite her had promised her that he was definitely not dead and must still be alive. Therefore, she kept waiting. Unconsciously, she had waited for 3 years. Even the eldest uncle opposite her didn't believe that he was still alive. However, she still kept waiting. Since the day of the engagement, she had been his woman. She would never choose another man in this life. The eldest uncle's simple words made the woman's heart, which had been calm for 3 years, fluctuate again. She hadn't been so excited for a long time. Her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. She forced herself to calm down and didn't want anyone to notice her emotional fluctuations. Because the eldest uncle's words were very clear. The news meant that he was still alive. She hadn't waited for 3 years in vain. After a long time, the woman calmed down and said firmly, "Eldest uncle, this time, I don't want to lose to anyone." Song Ryu was the only one who could make Qin Changxing pay so much attention to her and call him eldest uncle. Qin Changxing was already an old man. For the past 3 years, it could be said that he had spared no effort for the Qin clan. He had done all that he could and could do. Now it was almost the end. Everything was about to come to an end. It was time to put the lid on the coffin. This battle that had lasted for 3 years should also end. Qin Changxing said faintly, "You have suffered for the past 3 years. Uncle will definitely promise you. There's nothing to feel aggrieved about. It's my choice, and it has nothing to do with anyone else," Song Ryu said calmly. Qin Changxing sighed softly and said, "You are really like Qin Sheng's mother. No wonder the Zhu family likes you so much. I heard that the old lady treats you better than she used to treat Qin Sheng. She really feels sorry for you." Song Ryu didn't say anything. Qin Sheng didn't have a chance to visit the old lady again, so she took his place and visited the old lady every week. No one told the old lady what had happened until the old lady felt that something was wrong. Because everyone was avoiding the topic about Qin Sheng, how could the old lady, who was so smart, not understand? Therefore, one night, the old lady called Zhu Weigua, Zhu Qingwen, and Qin ran over. She went straight to the point and asked them to explain what happened. Other than the few people involved, no one knew what happened that day, let alone what the old lady said. In any case, the end result was that the old lady was admitted to the ICU that night and remained in a coma for 2 days and 2 nights. Everyone thought that the old lady would not make it this time. At that time, the Zhu family started to prepare for her funeral. Although the old lady woke up later, she was in a very bad state of mind. The doctor said that she might not be able to hold on for long and had issued a notice of critical illness. During that time, Zhu Weigua canceled most of his activities. As long as he was free, he would go to the hospital. He just wanted to accompany the old lady in her last moments, which was also the last thing he could do as a son. At that time, it didn't matter about the identity of the old lady. It was only the simplest mother-son relationship. But who knew that after the old lady woke up, old Master Song would come to visit her once. Both of them were old people with one foot in the grave. At that time, one was lying in a hospital bed and the other was sitting in a wheelchair. The sun shone on the two of them from outside the window. At that moment, their bodies were filled with the marks of time and age. There was no one to disturb them, just the two old men chatting there. They talked about their youth, then talked about their friendship during the revolution and the years of war. They talked about many sad past events, and also talked about many friends who had passed away long ago. Some had passed away during the war, some had fallen in the era of peace, and the rest had lost to time and disease. Fortunately, they were still alive. They had lived until now, and they had many children and grandchildren. Now, what else could they ask for? Old Master Song naturally talked about Qin Sheng, which was inevitable. However, this time, the old lady didn't feel sad. No one knew what Old Master Song said to the old lady. In short, after Old Master Song left, the old lady's mental state was much better, and she was getting better day by day. In fact, Old Master Song didn't say anything. He just told her what Qin Changxing had told him. Qin Changxing felt that he was too ashamed to meet the old lady, so he could only ask Old Master Song to do it. Moreover, the old lady might listen to Old Master Song's words. In the end, Old Master Song and the old lady made an agreement that they should live well and see the day when the two children got married. Only then could their lives be considered complete. Therefore, from then on, the old lady loved Song Ryu very much. Obviously, it was a special treatment. The whole Zhu family could feel it, but they were also very happy. As long as the old lady was safe and sound, everything was fine. At the same time, Old Master Song and Old Lady Zhu also reached an agreement. Old Lady Zhu would fully support Zhu Weigua and Zhu Changshan in some matters, and Old Master Song would escort them from behind. After all, Old Master Song used to be in the same position as Old Master Zhu, and he was more powerful than the old lady. The Qin family was in the front, and the Zhu and Song families were in the back. The Qin family cooperated in the business, and the Zhu and Song families were in charge behind the scenes. After 3 years, everything was coming to an end. Don't tell me that you're already receiving the treatment of a director of a department with real power in the central office. It looks like we took the right step back then. Of course, that teacher of yours also contributed a lot, Qin Changxing said with a kind smile. Time passed quickly, and no one should look back. When this old man saw these juniors getting better and better, he would inevitably think of himself in the past. Song Ryu didn't want to talk about it. She shook her head and said, "For me, it's just a job no matter which department I'm in. Maybe one day I will suddenly resign and become an ordinary university professor like Small Ant. Maybe that's the life I want. If you really think so, I won't interfere and will support you," Qin Changxing said. Song Ryu looked at the time and said, "Uncle, it's time for me to go. Say hello to Annie for me." Qin Changxing nodded with a smile and watched Song Ryu leave. He would see that woman tomorrow, and it would not be difficult for him to find Qin Sheng. It had been 3 years, and she finally appeared. Otherwise, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack in the express delivery station in Chengdu. Li Xiang was having an argument with a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. He really admired her. Was this fair, rich, and beautiful woman so bored that she came to this place? Are you very free? Don't you need to go to work? Well, how can a fair, rich, and beautiful woman like you work? Li Xiang approached her and said impolitely. The goddess in other people's eyes was just a passerby in the vast sea of people for him. She was wearing a white tight-fitting t-shirt, white jeans, simple white shoes, and shoulder-length hair that emitted a fragrance. She was matched with a famous bag and expensive luxury jewelry. Such a fair, rich, and beautiful woman was the most dazzling existence wherever she went. Of course, she also had the most valuable Ferrari. Cece was proud of her strength, but she was more and more interested in the man in front of her, who was 6 years older than her. She always felt that he was a mystery, and she wanted to uncover it. Li Xiang, are you surprised? Cece smiled very brightly. Li Xiang replied with a sharp tongue, "It's not an accident, but a shock. I received your thanks. No matter who it is, I will help you that day. Don't think too much about it. We are not in the same world. You see, I have to deliver packages in the day and sing in the bar at night. How can we meet? I just want to be friends with you," Cece said calmly. When she spoke, there was always a smile on her face, showing her dimples. Her eyes were also shining, which was a little attractive. Li Xiang was speechless. Do you lack friends? A fair, rich, and beautiful woman like you should not lack friends. The handsome men chasing after you can line up from here to Chuanchi Road. Why are you looking for me? Cece didn't care what Li Xiang said at all. She said lightly, "Uncle, I know you are not married yet, but do you have a girlfriend?" Li Xiang was really a little crazy. It was completely him talking about him, and she talking about her. They were not on the same channel at all. What the hell was Uncle? What? You want to hit on me? Li Xiang was silent for a moment. He couldn't help but feel that it was interesting. He wanted to tease this boring, fair, rich, and beautiful woman to see what on earth she wanted to do. Cece took 2 steps forward on purpose, leaned forward, and said, "If you don't have one, do you think I'm suitable?" "Psycho," Li Xiang directly scolded. Cece didn't take it seriously. Instead, she smiled very happily and said, "Then you can treat me as a psycho. From today on, I am your girlfriend. I know you get off work at 6 o'clock. I will pick you up then. If there is nothing else, boyfriend, I will leave first." Li Xiang was really going crazy because of this woman. What on earth did she want to do? However, after saying these words, Cece stopped teasing Li Xiang. She directly got in the car and was ready to leave. She wanted to find out what kind of man on earth this man was. Her grandfather once said that a man's temperament was accumulated over time. If this man only delivered packages in the day and sang in the bar at night, he would not have such temperament at all. She was so curious. Okay, since you want to play, then I will play with you. Li Xiang's reverse psychology came up. He didn't want to be played by a woman, so he directly shouted, "What's your name?" At this time, Cece rolled down the window and revealed a very attractive look. She said, "Your girlfriend's name is Gu Xining. You can call me Cece, remember?" After saying this, Cece drove away directly, leaving Li Xiang, who was a little confused. Life really played a joke on him. FBZW. Chapter 1102. A man can't be a hero without money. After Gu Xining left, the courier station immediately became lively. This was big news. How could these people not be gossipy? Look, her legs are so big, her breasts are so long, and her legs are so white. The colleagues at the express delivery station began to fantasize. They could not have such a fair, rich, and beautiful woman, so they could only do this. Huang Su, who was experienced, kicked him in the butt and said, "Get lost. What are you thinking about? How can you be interested in such a woman? Do you think you're Li Xiang? Look at your thick skin and thick flesh. Which woman will like you?" And look at Li Xiang's condition. The workers at the express delivery station had always been curious. How could a man like Li Xiang come to deliver packages? No matter how they looked at it, he didn't look like a laborer. They reckoned that he was here to experience life. Besides, he had such a beautiful aunt. They reckoned that he wouldn't stay for long before leaving. Who knew that he had persisted for 2 months? This was not easy. If it was the old Li Xiang, no one would think he was a man who could deliver packages. Maybe it was because he had stayed at the border of Sichuan Tibet for 3 years that he had tan a lot. He was stronger and more mature than before. "Li Xiang, is this beautiful woman really your girlfriend?" Huang Su walked over and asked again. Everyone heard what the beautiful woman said when she left, so Huang Su asked this question. Li Xiang said helplessly, "Brother Su, what are you thinking? How can such a beautiful woman be my girlfriend? Do you believe me? If it's someone else, I definitely won't believe it. But if it's you, Li Xiang, I definitely believe it. You never tell us what you used to be, but I feel that you must have done something big in the past. It's not strange that you know such a beautiful woman," said Huang Su. Although Li Xiang said that he had a serious illness and had forgotten about his past, Huang Su and the others felt that it was just an excuse from Li Xiang. Li Xiang really did not know why Huang Su was so confident in him. He did not even know what he used to do. Could it be that he was really a big boss? "That's enough, Brother Su. He's just a friend of mine. You should go and do your own things in case the boss's wife comes out to scold us later," Li Xiang said with a smile. Then he was ready to go to the office to change his clothes and start a busy and fulfilling day. At this time, Huang Su and the others also saw that the proprietress had come out. They quickly dispersed and went about their own business. The proprietress was like a landlady here. No one dared to provoke the proprietress, who was at least 100 kilograms. Usually, when she scolded them, it was like she was scolding her grandchildren. They didn't know how the boss's thin and weak body could withstand the proprietress's torment. After Huang Su and the others dispersed, Li Xiang had not walked a few steps when he heard the landlady shouting impatiently, "Li Xiang, come here." Li Xiang ran over happily. He was a special existence here. Whether it was the boss or the proprietress, they were all very kind to him. The boss might be treating him because of Li Xiang's aunt, and the proprietress might be treating him because of Li Xiang's purple color. What's the meaning of this? I knew you wouldn't want me to introduce a girlfriend to you. Turns out you have such a beautiful girlfriend. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me worry for nothing. You must be messing with me, the lady boss scolded as she chewed on melon seeds. Li Xiang quickly replied, "Sister Lily, that girl is really not my girlfriend. She's just a friend. She just told me something today. I won't let her come here in the future." Sister Lily, this was how the proprietress addressed her. Those who did not know her might think that she was a beautiful young married woman. After seeing her, they probably would not have any thoughts about her anymore. The proprietress snorted coldly and said, "That's more like it. What about the girl I introduced last time? Have you contacted her?" "Sister Lily, that girl is too young. I like older girls. You see, I'm an old single dog. I don't have anything I want. It would be good if I could have a divorced young married woman. It would be better if she could have 2 children. Then I don't need to have children, Li Xiang said. At first, the proprietress looked calm. However, as she listened to Li Xiang's words, her face became uglier and uglier. In the end, she revealed a murderous look. Li Xiang did not wait for the proprietress to get angry and ran away directly. A busy and fulfilling day began again. Li Xiang liked this kind of life. Every day, he drove an electric tricycle through the streets and alleys to deliver and receive packages. Although it was a little hot and tiring in summer, it was much more interesting than the life in the small town of Sichuanabad. The most interesting thing was that he could come into contact with all kinds of people every day. Li Xiang liked to observe them the most. Everyone had their own life, and everyone was experiencing different things. Li Xiang could guess their happiness and anger, and sometimes he would even chat with them with interest. Because his aunt had gone far away, there was no one in the bookstore to make lunch. Ning had to take care of the flowers and cats in the bookstore, so she definitely had no time to cook. At noon, Li Xiang bought some chili oil stuffed buns from a nearby fly shop and sent them there. As soon as he entered the bookstore, he heard the sound of quarreling inside. Li Xiang frowned slightly and walked over quickly. He saw 2 or 3 hooligans surrounding Ning and shouting aggressively, "Your father owes money and can't pay it back. Then we can only ask you for it. If you can't pay it back, we can only think of other ways. I think a beautiful woman like you must have a good business as a prostitute." As soon as the hooligan finished speaking, the other 2 couldn't help but laugh. They did not forget to look at Ning and scrupulously, as if they were going to take off Ning's clothes. Who said that? At this time, Li Xiang had already walked in. He treated Ning as his sister. How could he tolerate others bullying Ning, let alone coming to the bookstore to bully her? The 3 hooligans turned their heads and looked at Li Xiang. The one who spoke said disdainfully, "Oh, you're the delivery man. What business do you have here? If you don't want to cause trouble, get out of here." Li Xiang didn't talk nonsense. He stared at the hooligan, and there was an inexplicable aura about him that made the hooligan step back subconsciously. However, the hooligan still said stubbornly, "It's a matter of course to pay the debt. We didn't do anything illegal. What do you want?" Li Xiang didn't make a move. He just asked, "How much money does her father still owe you? In addition to the 100,000 last time, he still has 80,000 with interest. When do you want to pay it back?" The hooligan didn't want to cause trouble. They just wanted to collect the debt. Unless it was necessary, they would not make a move. "If you still want the money, get out of here now. Come back in 3 days to get the money," Li Xiang said. When the hooligans heard this, they immediately became spirited and said, "Okay, since you said so, I'll believe you this time. If you don't pay it back in 3 days, don't blame us for being rude." "Get out," Li Xiang scolded. The few hooligans ran away with their butts trembling. As soon as they left, Ning cried sadly, "Brother Li Xiang, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault." Ning's surname was Ning, and her name was Ning Yuan. Li Xiang and his aunt always called her Ning. They got used to it. Ning also liked the name. Later, Li Xiang often sang a song called Ning for her. Ning liked the name more and more. "It's okay. It's all in the past." Li Xiang touched Ning's hair and comforted her. "I'll think of a way to borrow some money from the boss. As long as you pay the debt, they won't come to you again." Li Xiang really doesn't have any money. His meals, drinks, toilets, and sleeping are all paid for by his aunt. Sometimes Li Xiang feels very shameful. A man with hands and feet still needs his aunt to support him. So when he arrived in Chengdu, he insisted on coming out to work. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any education, plus he is already in his 30s. He can only be a coolie. "Brother Li Xiang, I don't want to bother you anymore. The 80,000 yuan was paid by my aunt last time. You didn't agree. I can't bother you anymore." Ning refused directly. Li Xiang replied firmly, "Why are you saying this? I said I'll think of a way. You don't have to worry about it. You can pay us back when you make money in the future." Ning wanted to continue to say something, but Li Xiang changed the topic and asked her to eat. When Ning finished eating, Li Xiang had already gone back to work, leaving Ning alone in a daze. Ning always felt that she was unlucky. But the luckiest thing for her was to meet her aunt and Li Xiang. In the beginning, she thought that Li Xiang had feelings for her. Later, she found that she thought too much. Li Xiang just regarded her as a younger sister. She liked the feeling of being loved very much. Since she was a child, what she lacked was family love. She didn't know what her aunt and Li Xiang did before, and she didn't want to know about it. But she knew that her aunt and Li Xiang didn't have it easy. Her aunt's bookstore had been losing money. Li Xiang's brother had to deliver packages and be a resident singer to earn money to support the family. Besides, they had helped her once. She didn't want to trouble them again. So this time, she could only think of a way by herself. At the express station, after a day of delivering packages, Li Xiang had been looking for an opportunity to borrow money from the boss. But the boss went out when he got off work. It seemed that he had a social engagement at night. Li Xiang could only look for the boss's wife. What's more, the boss's financial power was controlled by the boss's wife. Even if he went to the boss would make the final decision. But who knew that after he went to the boss's wife, the result was not what he wanted? The boss's wife refused him politely. She said that it was not easy for the express station now. The pressure of competition was too great. The business in the past few months was not good. The monthly expenses were so high. They had to pay their salaries and so on. After the boss's wife said these words, Li Xiang had no choice but to leave. He didn't want to put the boss's wife in a difficult position. After all, it was not easy for them. Every family had its own difficulties. It was really difficult for a hero to be poor. When would he be rich? Then his aunt would be able to let his aunt live a better life. It was a pity that he didn't know any friends in Chengdu. Even if he wanted to borrow money, he didn't know who to turn to. At this time, Li Xiang saw Huang Su run over and shouted, "Li Xiang, your girlfriend is here again." Li Xiang looked at the door of the express station subconsciously. Sure enough, he saw that the beauty named Gu Xining was waiting for him at the door. The red Ferrari was not parked next to her, but a white Porsche. The fair, rich, and beautiful woman was really fair, rich, and beautiful. Gu Xining happened to see Li Xiang. She smiled and waved to Li Xiang, asking him to come out quickly. Li Xiang was a little worried at first, but when he saw Gu Xining, he suddenly thought of something. After hesitating for a long time, he finally walked over shamelessly. FPZW. Chapter 11:03. I knew it poor Li Xiang. Now he was worried about a mere 100,000 yuan. If others knew about this, they would probably laugh their heads off. It should be known that Li Xiang had never worried about money in his life. Whether it was when he was young, or when he grew up, whether it was when he traveled for more than 2 years, or when he was homeless, he had never been short of money. Not to mention that after he returned to that famous family, money became the cheapest thing. However, the current Li Xiang was Li Xiang. He had no money. He had no money. However, whether it was before or now, Li Xiang had never taken money seriously. He could choose not to help Ning, but he, who had no family except for his aunt, had already regarded Ning as a family member. So he felt that this family member was more important than the 100,000 yuan. Moreover, Ning was really too pitiful. He had such a father in a single-parent family. Li Xiang felt that this time he not only had to help Ning pay off the debt, but also had to help Ning solve the problem of his father who was addicted to gambling. Otherwise, Ning would be dragged to death for the rest of his life. Since he couldn't borrow money from the lady boss, Li Xiang could only think of another way. Who knew that Gu Xining would appear at this time? This made Li Xiang instantly find a financial backer. Anyway, this fair, rich, and beautiful woman was not short of money. He could try to borrow money from her. Li Xiang couldn't guarantee that Gu Xining would lend him money. Although it was said that he owed her a favor, they had only known each other for less than a week after all. Gu Xining might be bored and use him to kill time. Once he asked to borrow money, she would immediately run away. But thinking about it, this was also good. If Gu Xining borrowed money, it would solve the problem of Ning. If Gu Xining didn't borrow money, it would also solve the problem of Gu Xining. He wouldn't be bothered by her in the future. When Li Xiang slowly walked to the door of the express delivery station, his colleagues at the express delivery station were all looking at him. Now if Li Xiang said that he and this fair, rich, and beautiful woman were just ordinary friends, probably no one would believe it. During the day, Gu Xining was youthful and beautiful. At this time, she was sexy and charming. She was wearing a black dress with slightly mature makeup. She was wearing a classic Bumpo watch on her wrist and a Bulgari necklace on her neck. In addition, she was driving a Porsche sports car. Who would dare to covet such a fair, rich, and beautiful woman? Although Gu Xining was only 1.66 meters tall, she was considered tall among the girls in Chuanyu. Moreover, she was wearing high heels, which made her a good match for Li Xiang. Of course, age was not an issue. "Why are you here again?" Li Xiang said impatiently. Gu Xining was used to Li Xiang's attitude. She held Li Xiang's arm and said, "I'm here to pick up my boyfriend from work. I'll pick you up every day from now on. What do you think?" Li Xiang didn't feel embarrassed at all. It seemed that he was used to this kind of behavior, which surprised him a little. He had no choice but to say, "Who said you're my girlfriend?" Gu Xining curled her lips and said, "Humph, you'll be my boyfriend sooner or later. You should get used to it first, in case you can't get used to it later." Li Xiang really had no way to deal with Gu Xining, a fair, rich, and beautiful woman who was even more shameless than him. It seemed that it was difficult for him to deal with Gu Xining with his current strategy. In that case, he could only carry out the strategy he had set up during the day. That was, beat her at her own game. "Okay, from today on, you're my girlfriend," Li Xiang said bluntly. Gu Xining knew that there must be something fishy about it, but she still shouted happily after hearing it. "Really? You can't go back on your word. Whoever goes back on his word is a puppy." Li Xiang didn't talk nonsense. He nodded with a smile and said that he didn't regret it. However, what he did next made Gu Xining stiffen on the spot, because he put his hand on Gu Xining's perky but unscrupulously and said in amazement, "It feels so good." Gu Xining often went to the gym to exercise or do yoga, and so on. Her figure was not comparable to that of an ordinary girl. Moreover, she was wearing high heels today, which showed off her perfect figure. Any man would want to commit a crime against such a woman. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would suddenly be so direct, which was somewhat unexpected. Moreover, it was in broad daylight, and they were at the entrance of the express delivery station. There were so many people watching, and Li Xiang dared to do this. Gu Xining's face turned slightly red. However, she didn't think that Li Xiang was such a lascivious man. He must want to use this kind of trick to force her to leave. How could she give up so easily? Therefore, after coming to her senses, Gu Xining took advantage of the opportunity to put Li Xiang's perverted hand on her buttocks. She smiled and said, "There are so many people watching. How dare you? Hurry up and get in the car." Judging from Gu Xining's reaction, Li Xiang felt that this trick seemed to be very effective. It seemed that Gu Xining was still very conservative. This kind of body movement was already the limit. Of course, this was also Li Xiang's limit. If he continued like this, he would be a little unscrupulous. Li Xiang followed Gu Xining and got in the car obediently. After getting in the car, Gu Xining was very considerate and helped Li Xiang fasten the seatbelt. When Gu Xining fastened the seatbelt for Li Xiang, she naturally leaned forward and had intimate contact with Li Xiang. Li Xiang could directly see Gu Xining's charming breasts and smell the faint fragrance on Gu Xining's body. He didn't know whether it was perfume or body fragrance. This kind of contact made Li Xiang somewhat blush and his heart beat faster. He had never been like this with a woman before. This time, he was completely defeated. Seeing Li Xiang's reaction, Gu Xining couldn't help but smile secretly. She knew that Li Xiang must have used this trick just now. After a short interlude, Gu Xining drove the Porsche 911 away, leaving only a cloud of dust and sighs. In the express delivery station, the staff had already run out. They had seen clearly what had happened here just now. Someone couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "Old Gu, why don't I have such a fate?" It was really funny for Trump to say this. Another person said, "Li Xiang is really capable. I admire him. If I want to learn from him in the future, I don't want to work hard anymore." The crowd couldn't help laughing. In the car, Gu Xining asked with a smile, "Shall we go back to the bookstore first or go to eat first? Have you investigated me?" Li Xiang's face changed slightly. Gu Xining knew that Li Xiang was very sensitive, so she hurriedly explained, I didn't investigate you. I just want to know more about you. Besides, it doesn't need to be investigated. All the workers at the express delivery station know about it. Li Xiang thought about it and agreed. Maybe he was too sensitive. He thought for a moment and told the truth. I'm going back to the bookstore to cook. Ning hasn't eaten yet. Gu Xining didn't know Li Xiang before. The more she knew about him, the more she felt that this man was a mystery. He seemed to be like a bottomless black hole, which attracted her inexplicably. She couldn't help but want to figure out this black hole. She didn't think that this man was just a courier. What did he do before he was a courier? It's a little late to cook now. Let's find a place to eat and then pack some for her. Gu Xining arranged. In fact, she also wanted to meet the girl named Ning, who was very similar to her name. It was said that she was also a great beauty, which made Gu Xining feel a little pressured. What was the relationship between Li Xiang and Ning? Although Li Xiang agreed with Gu Xining, he still made it difficult for her and said, ordinary people like us can easily find a roadside stall to eat and keep warm. You, a lady from a rich family, must go to a high-end restaurant. Although you are my girlfriend now, I don't have the money to treat you to a meal. Ha! Hearing Li Xiang's words, Gu Xining couldn't help laughing and said, Am I such a woman in your heart? Li Xiang asked in reply, Aren't you? Of course not. My favorite places are those small restaurants. You have only been in Chengdu for 2 months, so you definitely haven't enjoyed the delicious food in Chengdu. In the future, let me take you to enjoy your time, Gu Xining said proudly. Li Xiang usually liked to eat, especially in these small restaurants. He had eaten all the delicious food nearby. Gu Xining's words were very tempting to Li Xiang. After all, when he was in the Sichuan town, his aunt only allowed him to eat light food. It was not until he arrived in Chengdu that he began to break the rule. Li Xiang said cheekily, Then take me there another day. In the end, Li Xiang and Gu Xining randomly chose a noodle restaurant. Gu Xining only ate 1 or 2 noodles and was not finished yet, while Li Xiang ate 4 or 2 noodles. In the end, Gu Xining gave all her leftover noodles to Li Xiang, saying that it should not be wasted. After the meal, when they got on the car, Li Xiang finally couldn't help but say, By the way, I want you to do me a favor. Of course, you can choose not to help. Gu Xining looked at Li Xiang with a puzzled face and said with a smile, Tell me what it is first. I may not be able to help you, but I will try my best. It's not a big deal. I just wanted to lend me some money, Li Xiang said cheekily. The look in Gu Xining's eyes changed slightly. It seemed that she was still very sensitive to the word money. Since she was a child, she had known too many people who came for her family's money. Even many men who chased after her also came for her family's background. Therefore, she had a natural resistance to this kind of people. However, she felt that Li Xiang was not such a person. Borrow so much money, what do you want? Gu Xining said coldly. Li Xiang replied honestly, 100,000. Don't ask me what I want. Otherwise, I won't lend it to you. I will give it to you by the end of the year at the latest. 100,000? Gu Xining had thought that he would borrow a lot of money. Her friends always asked for hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan. She had never heard of the number 100,000. It might be the amount she sometimes spent in one night. Li Xiang said a little embarrassedly, Is it too much? It doesn't matter. 100,000 is okay. When do you want it? Should I transfer it to you or give you cash? Gu Xining said without thinking much. Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Xining would agree so quickly. He was a little surprised and said, You agreed so quickly? Are you afraid that I won't pay you back? I'm not afraid. If you don't pay me back, I will sell you. Anyway, I know where you live and work, Gu Xining said coldly on purpose. Li Xiang said very seriously, Don't worry, I will pay you back. I'm not the kind of person who owes money and doesn't pay back. I will also give you an IOU. You can also calculate the interest. I will give it to you by the end of the year at the latest. You could directly transfer it to my bank card. Then give me your bank card number. I will transfer it to you now, Gu Xining said with a smile. Sometimes she felt that this uncle was quite interesting. He was more innocent than those young people. But sometimes she felt that this uncle was really too experienced, more experienced than his father and uncles. What kind of person was he on Earth? After Li Xiang told Gu Xining his bank card number, Gu Xining immediately transferred the money to Li Xiang in front of him. When he received the message from the bank, Li Xiang felt it was a little unbelievable. He didn't expect that Gu Xining would really lend him money. He thought that Gu Xining would dislike him because of this. He didn't expect that she would really lend him money. It seemed that he owed Gu Xining a favor. He couldn't be so rude to her in the future. Just when Li Xiang was in a daze, Gu Xining bit her lip and said, "From today on, you are my sugar daddy. This 100,000 is my sugar daddy's fee. Do you feel that you have reached the peak of your life?" "You are the sugar daddy," Li Xiang replied angrily. Gu Xining couldn't help laughing. She was afraid that Li Xiang would be angry. She hurriedly said, "I am teasing you. You are so stingy." Li Xiang was too lazy to pay attention to this mischievous, fair, rich, and beautiful girl. He really didn't know what she was thinking all day. At this time, Gu Xining suddenly said, "Since I have done you a favor, you have to do me a favor too. And you can't refuse. What do you think?" "I knew it." Hearing this, Li Xiang knew that Gu Xining would never lend him money, so simply FPZW. Chapter 1104. Gu Xining knew Li Xiang well enough. Of course, she only knew the current Li Xiang. He didn't even know the former Li Xiang. So how could Gu Xining know him? However, Li Xiang didn't know Gu Xining at all, whether it was the current Gu Xining or the former Gu Xining. Of course, he had only known Gu Xining for a few days and had no interest in getting to know her. What about the future? Li Xiang was a little surprised and touched that Gu Xining would lend him money. After all, they had just known each other for a short time. Maybe 100,000 yuan was nothing to Gu Xining. Who knew if Gu Xining was spending money to buy happiness? However, when he heard that Gu Xining wanted to help him, Li Xiang was still cautious. There must be something wrong if something was abnormal. This was what his aunt had told him. It was dark and slippery, and people's hearts were complicated. He didn't dare to trust Gu Xining easily. After all, any normal person could understand that it was impossible for Li Xiang and Gu Xining to have any interaction. Even if Gu Xining lacked a boyfriend, she would never find a middle-aged single dog like Li Xiang, who had everything he wanted and couldn't do anything. "What do you want to help me with first? I really don't know what I can do for you. If I can't help you, I'll return the 100,000 yuan to you," Li Xiang said very carefully. He thought that Gu Xining lent him money to ask for his help. Gu Xining let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, uncle, why are you so narrow-minded? I just want you to help me with an ordinary thing. Even if you don't want to help me, it's another thing for me to lend you money. This is a different thing." "Was it really like that?" Li Xiang said thoughtfully. "Then what do you want to help me with? Don't think too much. I just want you to accompany me to a friend's party tonight. Just go for a walk. After all, you're my boyfriend now," Gu Xining said honestly. Hearing this, Li Xiang was finally relieved. He smiled and said, "I see, but I still have to go to the bar to sing." Gu Xining knew that Li Xiang had agreed. She was very happy and smiled. Tonight's matter was finally settled. She didn't dare to tell Li Xiang not to go to the bar to sing. Instead, she said, "I'll wait for you to get off work." The two sides finally reached a consensus on two matters, each taking what they needed and each seeking what they could get. When the Porsche 911 stopped in front of the bookstore, An Ning, who was wearing an apron and had a ponytail, was playing with Zhizhiya. She saw a sports car suddenly stopped in front of the bookstore and thought that someone had come to buy flowers. After all, there were still many rich people in Chengdu, and the streets were full of all kinds of sports cars. But what she didn't expect was that it was Li Xiang who got out of the Porsche. Before Ning could come back to her senses, she saw another beautiful woman get out of the Porsche. Obviously, this Porsche belonged to this beautiful woman. "Brother Li Xiang, why are you?" Ning saw that the beauty who came down with Li Xiang was very beautiful, which made her feel a little ashamed and slightly nervous. Li Xiang said softly, "You haven't eaten yet, right? I won't cook for you today. I brought you some noodles." "Thank you, brother Li Xiang," Ning said obediently. At this time, Gu Xining had already walked in front of Ning. She took the initiative to stretch out her hand and said, "You must be Ning. I am Li Xiang's girlfriend. My name is Gu Xining. Nice to meet you." Girlfriend? Hearing this, Ning was a little confused. Li Xiang couldn't explain anything, so he had to change the topic and said, "How's business today?" "It's not bad. There are more people buying flowers, and there are also several people buying books." Speaking of business, Ning was very happy. Gu Xining still didn't know the relationship between Ning and Li Xiang. After all, a man like Li Xiang could easily attract little girls like them. Maybe this Ning also liked Li Xiang. She didn't take the initiative to provoke Ning to declare her sovereignty. Instead, she squatted on the ground and played with Squeak. Taking this opportunity, Ning ran in with Li Xiang and said, "Brother Li Xiang, who is she? Is she really your girlfriend?" Somehow, when she heard that the beautiful woman said that she was Li Xiang's girlfriend, Ning felt an inexplicable sense of loss in her heart. So she was eager to know what was going on. At this time, Li Xiang explained, "She's just a friend of mine. Don't think too much about it. She's like this. I'm used to it." In fact, Ning still wanted to ask more questions. For example, she had never seen this beautiful woman named Gu Xining before, nor had she heard from Li Xiang that he had such a friend. Why did she appear just after her aunt left? However, after all, she was not her aunt, so it was not appropriate for her to continue to ask more questions. "Oh, that's good. Otherwise, I will complain to my aunt," Ning pouted and said. At this time, Gu Xining had already come in and looked around the bookstore. The name of the store was quite interesting. She didn't know who gave it the name: Fragrance of Books, Fragrance of Tea, and Fragrance of Flowers. The bookstore was filled with all kinds of books. Even the ground was stacked with books of all kinds. It was obvious that this was a well-organized bookstore. The style of the bookstore was also antique. It was a bit like a private library in ancient times. Fragrance of Flowers. There were all kinds of flowers and plants inside and outside the bookstore. Before entering the bookstore, she could smell all kinds of flowers. This kind of bookstore was probably the dream of every girl. It also reminded her of her childhood dream, which seemed to be such a life. As for the fragrance of tea, she didn't know. When Li Xiang came out, Gu Xining asked directly, "Why didn't I see my aunt?" Li Xiang really wanted to ask, "You even know my aunt? What else do you not know?" Gu Xining was most curious about Li Xiang's aunt. It was said that she was a very beautiful and stunning woman. Gu Xining really wanted to know how beautiful she was. After all, Chengdu had never been short of beautiful women. "Oh, my aunt has gone far away," Li Xiang said casually. Alas, Gu Xining felt a little pity. At this time, a few guests came to the bookstore. Ning was busy greeting the guests. Li Xiang was upstairs making a phone call. Gu Xining had nothing to do, so she strolled around the bookstore. She also found a few books that were quite interesting and was ready to take them away when she left. When it was almost time, Li Xiang came downstairs with his guitar on his back. Gu Xining quickly walked over and asked, "Li Xiang, can we go now?" Li Xiang nodded, then said goodbye to Ning and left with Gu Xining in the car. After watching them leave, Ning felt somewhat upset in her heart. It was as if her beloved toy had been taken away, and she was still hesitating whether to tell her aunt or not. But after that, she felt relieved. What was she thinking? Li Xiang was just her brother, nothing more. After Li Xiang came to Chengdu, he had hardly been to anywhere. His usual life track was around the neighborhood, but recently there was the addition of Jiyan Bridge. A few days ago, he rode his beloved small motorcycle to Jiyan Bridge, but today he was sitting in a Porsche sports car worth millions. Li Xiang was somewhat not used to it. He almost didn't talk to Gu Xining and had been looking at the outside world through the car window. The bustling city, the hurried people, the different status, the different feelings. At this moment, Li Xiang's heart was very complicated. It seemed that this feeling was very familiar. Those broken memories began to appear again. His eyes were slightly sad, and he was completely immersed in his own world, as if he had long forgotten that Gu Xining was beside him. What kind of person was I in the past? Li Xiang finally began to seriously reflect on this question. Gu Xining didn't hear it clearly. She frowned and said, "Li Xiang, what did you say?" At this time, Li Xiang came to his senses. He smiled and shook his head, saying that he didn't say anything. It just so happened that they had arrived at the bar street of Jian Bridge. Gu Xining randomly found a parking space, parked the car, and then accompanied Li Xiang to the bar. Li Xiang walked in the front with his guitar on his back, and Gu Xining followed closely behind him. She liked Li Xiang's back, as if it was his back that attracted her that night. It wasn't that she had never met a resident singer like Li Xiang, but that he was more like a wandering poet than a resident singer. Gu Xining had never met such a man. He was either a domineering and arrogant hedonistic son, a shrewd and scheming son, or a man with great potential who had sunk his heart to the bottom of the valley and worked hard silently. As for those older men, she had no interest in them at all. After all, they belonged to the level of her father's generation. Li Xiang, Gu Xining shouted, and then quickly caught up with Li Xiang, tightly holding his arm, as if at this moment she was really Li Xiang's girlfriend. Life passers-by guitar beauty. Maybe this kind of life was what every wandering singer wanted, and it was also the life that others envied. Unfortunately, it was not destined to be Li Xiang's life. When they arrived at the bar, everyone's eyes widened when they saw Li Xiang and Gu Xining walking in. They all knew that this beauty would come to listen to Li Xiang's singing these days, but they didn't expect that Li Xiang would win her heart so quickly. Who wouldn't want such a beauty? As expected, a man chasing a woman was separated by a mountain, and a woman chasing a man was separated by a layer of gauze. When Brother Chow saw this, his eyes almost popped out, but because Gu Xining was by his side, he didn't say anything. He just winked at Li Xiang to show him that he was really good, and then said, "Li Xiang, hurry up and get ready. I'll wait for you downstairs," Gu Xining said with a smile. She randomly found a booth, ordered a fruit plate and a glass of juice, and then waited quietly for Li Xiang. Li Xiang began to sing, but many people in the bar were actually paying attention to Gu Xining, but Gu Xining's eyes were all on Li Xiang. When Li Xiang was singing, Gu Xining's eyes seemed to be shining. Li Xiang sang several folk songs in a row. When he was about to finish, he suddenly looked at Gu Xining, who was sitting by the window, and said, "Song Donya, Lillian." Li Xiang adjusted his breathing and began to play the guitar. After a simple rhythm, he began to sing softly. She found that the lonely man was ready to rise. So she prayed. At dusk, she turned her head and heard sad sobs. The tone of this song was very low and hoarse, which was especially suitable for Li Xiang's voice. Moreover, Li Xiang's temperament was full of stories, which really made people feel intoxicated. But when Li Xiang sang today, it was almost the same as yesterday. There were all kinds of memory fragments floating in his mind. Even the scene of him singing was somewhat familiar. It was as if there was a girl who accompanied him down there, quietly listening to him sing, but not as ferociously as yesterday. At the end of the song, the lyrics were, "Far away from here, there's a beach. The lonely man is on the sea, holding the sail. If you see him, return to the coast. Please tell him your name, my name, Lillian." Li Xiang deliberately changed the last name to Gu Xining. Of course, Gu Xining had heard this song. When Li Xiang called out her name at the end, Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds before she came to her senses. Then she showed a bright smile and smiled very happily. It was a little romantic and a little touching. It was so simple. However, such a small trick was sneered at by other guests. These resident singers just loved to flirt with girls in this way. How vulgar. Humph. After the song, Li Xiang just came down, and Gu Xining ran to him and said, "Thank you." Li Xiang subconsciously touched her hair and said, "As long as you're happy." This ambiguous gesture made Gu Xining very embarrassed, and she lowered her head and blushed. Li Xiang's little tricks were getting more and more frequent, but Gu Xining seemed to enjoy it. After coming out of the bar, Li Xiang put the guitar into Gu Xining's car and said lightly, "Where to now?" Gu Xining said casually, "Space." On the way, Gu Xining explained that her best friend had a birthday party at Space tonight. Because there were two men chasing after her, she didn't go for dinner, but now she had to go. Therefore, she took Li Xiang with her. After all, Li Xiang was her boyfriend. At that time, the boys chasing after her would have no other ideas. Secondly, She wanted to take Li Xiang to meet her friend. Li Xiang asked deliberately, "Did you plan to use me as a gun? You think too much. I'm not a scheming girl. We'll go there for a walk, and then we'll leave." Gu Xining explained with a smile. Li Xiang didn't say much. Anyway, his aunt was going far away today. It was okay for him to go back a little later, as long as he didn't drink. After all, this was what his aunt had told him before he left. Otherwise, he would definitely be scolded when he came back. Space was currently one of the best nightclubs in Chengdu. Who knew how many second-generation rich kids came to visit because of its reputation? Needless to say, their spending power naturally went without saying. Not to mention the environment and atmosphere inside. Just the number of beautiful women was enough to dazzle one's eyes. Whether it was a man or a woman, as long as they had money, they would naturally be willing to enjoy life. This kind of place was the most suitable for spending money. Moreover, it was a city with high spending power like Chengdu. God knew how many rich second generations, fair, rich, and beautiful women came here to party every night. Space was near the TV tower. In addition to Space, there were several other nightclubs here. Therefore, every night it was extremely lively. The streets were full of handsome men and beautiful women, full of the smell of hormones. When Gu Xining brought Li Xiang here, Gu Xining's friends were already inside. They all knew that Gu Xining had a new boyfriend, so they all wanted to see the real face of this big boss who could win Gu Xining's heart. After all, the Gu family was considered to be influential in Chengdu. Moreover, the Gu family was currently experiencing a power struggle. Late at night, Beidei. In a holiday villa near the sea, an old man in his twilight years was lying on the bed, struggling at death's door. However, the old man's eyes were full of vigor. The past 2 years of life had exhausted him and also consumed the last of the old man's energy. However, the old man was still struggling to hold on, unwilling to die like this. Because he didn't want to lose, and he didn't want to lose so completely. Although the outcome had been decided, and he had paid a heavy price in this battle, his interest groups had almost all lost power, and some people had even betrayed them. These were all within his expectations. When he did that thing, he knew what price he would have to pay. However, he didn't get the result he wanted. Since the price had been paid, he had to get the result he wanted. So what if he had to wait for 3 years? After all, he already had news. Chapter 1105. Depending on your own ability in Beidei, a summer resort. In ancient times, Qin Shi Huang traveled to the east to seek longevity. Today, it was a tourist attraction. Even leaders would come here for a vacation every year. That old man, who was past his prime, was Senior Long, who had wanted to kill Qin Sheng. 3 years later, this old man had reached the end of his life. His life could be called a legend. He had been fighting all his life. Even when he was old, he still wanted to fight for the last time. He had only lost a few times in his life. Before he died, he did not want to lose again. Elder Long did not lie on the sickbed. Although he was about to die, he did not want to die in such a humiliating way. The biggest regret in his life was that he could not send old Master Qin to hell with his own hands. However, he had also made the Qin family pay a heavy price. This time, although he had sent Qin Chang'an to prison, no matter how much trouble the Qin family made, Qin Chang'an would stay in there for a long time. He had paid a heavy price for that. However, what he wanted most was to end the Qin family. Therefore, if Qin Sheng did not die, he would not be able to rest in peace. Last time, in order to kill Qin Sheng, it could be said that he made the whole interest group pay a heavy price. The attacks of the Zhu family and the Song family finally made him tired of dealing with them, and had no choice but to retreat. But even so, he did not give up. Even if this interest group was on the verge of falling apart, he still wanted to make this move. He could only move forward. He could not turn back. After coughing a few times, Elder Long said with difficulty, "Don't you all want this position?" There were 3 men sitting in front of Elder Long's window. They were the successors that Elder Long had carefully cultivated. He had already chosen one of them, but this time he completely changed his mind. The 3 men, who were young but had different temperaments, did not say anything. The expressions on their faces were different. No one knew what they were thinking. I'll tell you what the result will be. The result is that whoever can kill Qin Sheng will take over the position. I'll bear all the responsibility. You can enjoy your wealth. It's that simple. Elder Long's eyes were like torches. When he said this, his tone was full of murderous intent. Still, no one spoke. Perhaps everyone was weighing their own strength. Or perhaps they were weighing the pros and cons. Force me to abdicate. Do you think you can do that? My position isn't that easy to sit on. Let's all rely on our own strength. Elder Long's words were full of disdain. He didn't take these successors seriously at all. He really wasn't dead. If he wasn't dead, then he had the final say in this group. A lame middle-aged man trembled and said, "Old master, that's not what we meant. We're just here to see you. Don't say that to ghosts. You can go now. I'll wait for your news." Elder Long waved his hand and said, "I'll take all the responsibility." Hearing this, the men got up and left Old Master Long's room obediently. Who didn't want to be in this position? Unfortunately, Old Master Long didn't die. They really didn't have the strength to send Old Master Long to hell. Then, they could only think of a way to kill Qin Haodong. Anyway, Old Master Long said that he would bear all the responsibilities. Elder Master Lon. Chengdu's night, the Lon town time, he chung on Master Town La chung on Tian Chun Tian Man Tian time Master Feng he do, and Tian. Every night, it was a gathering place for young people. Even at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it was still very lively. Therefore, when Gu Xining and Li Xiang arrived here, almost all the nightclubs were full. Although Li Xiang had been in Chengdu for more than 2 months, he had never been to a nightclub like this before. He had always been around the surrounding areas of the living area. There are so many people here. Li Xiang sighed. It was not less than Julian Bridge. Most importantly, there were more young people here. There were handsome men and beautiful women everywhere. What Li Xiang didn't know was that if he wanted to see where the top beauties of Chengdu were, he would definitely come to the TV tower at night. At that time, he would know how high the quality of the beauties of Chengdu were. Gu Xining held Li Xiang's arm and explained with a smile, "This is the busiest place in Chengdu now, but I only come here occasionally. There are all my friends who insist on coming. I prefer to go to Julian Bridge to listen to music. Maybe because of my parents' influence, I don't like noisy places." "I didn't ask you," Li Xiang said casually. Hearing this, Gu Xining was angry and amused at the same time. She glared at Li Xiang, but she still liked the feeling of being with Li Xiang. It seemed that there was a natural magic that made her calm down. Maybe this was the charm of this man to her. "What about you? Have you ever been to a nightclub before?" Gu Xining asked curiously. Li Xiang thought for a moment and said self-mockingly, "I don't know about the past. Maybe I have been there, maybe I haven't. All I can remember are the things that happened in the past few years." "So you asked me. In fact, I also want to know." "Huh? You can only remember the things that happened in the past few years? What do you mean?" Gu Xining's eyes widened. She did not understand what Li Xiang meant. Li Xiang said honestly, "My aunt said that I was seriously injured 3 years ago. After I woke up, I forgot everything before, so I can only remember the things that happened in the past 3 years. I asked my aunt about my past, but she never told me. She also told me not to ask about it." After listening to Li Xiang's words, Gu Xining was already stunned. She was so shocked that she did not know what to say. Why did this kind of plot in movies and TV dramas suddenly appear? You mean you lost your memory? Really? Is this a trick you made up to fool me? Gu Xining had never experienced this kind of thing before. She said subconsciously. Li Xiang was a little funny and said, "I don't need to lie to you. Just take it that I am lying to you." Gu Xining did not say anything. It was really unbelievable. But thinking of the suspicious points about this man, it seemed that it could be explained. She had always felt that a man like Li Xiang, who had temperament and vicissitudes of life, was definitely not ordinary. How could he be a courier and a resident singer? If Li Xiang really lost his memory, what did Li Xiang do in the past? At this time, they had already walked to the door of space. Gu Xining's best friend had already come out to wait for them. Seeing Gu Xining and Li Xiang coming over, she quickly waved and smiled and said, "Cici, over here." Gu Xining walked over and hugged her best friend warmly. "Are they all here? They arrived a long time ago. They're just waiting for you. Gu Xining's best friend smiled and said, Indeed, there were beautiful women around beautiful women. But she followed closely behind and glanced at Li Xiang. Did you really win this uncle's heart? Gu Xining said proudly. What do you think? I am Gu Xining. I will definitely not miss what I want. That's true. Who asked our Cici to be so charming? Her best friend smiled and said. At this time, Gu Xining smiled and introduced her best friend to Li Xiang. Li Xiang had met Gu Xining's best friend before, but he did not know what her name was. Only today did he know that her name was Sun Tian. She should also be a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. After all, only in this way could he really play with Gu Xining. After the introduction, Sun Tian pulled Gu Xining into the nightclub. Li Xiang followed closely behind them. Before they entered the nightclub, they could already hear the loud music from afar. Li Xiang had only seen nightclubs on TV, but had never experienced one in person. Gu Xining was afraid that Li Xiang would not be used to it, so she held Li Xiang's hand tightly, which made Li Xiang feel somewhat touched. Not long after, Li Xiang followed them into space. At this time, Li Xiang realized how noisy and lively it was inside. The dim environment was accompanied by a large screen and colorful lights, which made people a little dazzled and difficult to adapt to. The loud music blasted one's brain and made one dizzy. There were men and women exuding the smell of hormones and alcohol everywhere. All kinds of smells filled the place, making people a little fascinated. On the stage, the DJ worked hard to drive the rhythm of the whole audience. On the dance floor, the men and women twisted their bodies to their heart's content to follow the rhythm. In the booth, the men and women put their arms around each other's shoulders and drank wine. No one knew what the relationship between them was. Whether it was on the dance floor, the booth, or the aisle, there were people coming and going everywhere. There were countless handsome men and beautiful women. However, for Li Xiang, such an environment was too easy for him to get lost. However, the more he walked forward, more and more memory fragments broke out in Li Xiang's mind. It seemed that the environment in his mind was also the same, and there were people who gradually became familiar to him, but he could not remember who they were. Could it be that he had been to such a place before? Reality, memory, these two different environments bombarded Li Xiang, making him feel like he had a split personality. Finally, they arrived at the booth where Gu Xining's best friend was sitting. Their booth was one of the largest in the hall. At this time, there were already 6 or 7 handsome men and beautiful women sitting there. They were all about the same age as Gu Xining and Sun Tian, and the one who was celebrating her birthday tonight was one of them. When Li Xiang and Gu Xining appeared, everyone's attention was focused on them. Most of the people's attention was on Li Xiang, who was dressed simply beside Gu Xining. They even forgot about the game that was in progress. Gu Xining greeted her best friend sweetly and said, "Happy birthday, Lele. This is your birthday present." "Thank you, my baby." The long-legged beauty named Lele took the birthday present and said happily. Then she asked Gu Xining and Li Xiang to sit next to her. Obviously, Gu Xining had a relatively high status in this group. Other than Li Xiang, there were 3 other men present. They were already familiar with these beauties. 2 of them had always had designs on Gu Xining, but they had never been able to woo her. It was just that recently, they had kept their distance from Gu Xining and had never taken the initiative to play with Gu Xining. Now, they were staring at Li Xiang with a very playful gaze. Lele hugged Gu Xining and said, "Cici, don't you want to introduce the man beside you?" Lele had not met Li Xiang yet, but she had heard Gu Xining mention to her. She really didn't know what to do with Gu Xining and didn't know what she was thinking. She just wanted Li Xiang to integrate into this group. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if they didn't know each other. Gu Xining introduced him confidently. "This is my boyfriend." To everyone's surprise, they were not very surprised. Maybe they had already seen it, or maybe the news had already spread like wildfire. Come on, let's celebrate Cici's finding a boyfriend. Let's drink and get drunk tonight." It was already the 2nd round of Lele's drinking. She was a little dizzy and shouted. Everyone filled each other's glasses with wine, but Li Xiang didn't drink. This made the others a little dissatisfied. At this time, Gu Xining hurriedly explained that Li Xiang was not in good health recently and couldn't drink. She would drink with him another day. Then they let Li Xiang go and didn't take the initiative to persuade Li Xiang to drink. After all, Gu Xining was here. Since Li Xiang didn't drink, they could only ask Gu Xining to drink. Gu Xining was embarrassed and couldn't refuse them. After all, they were all friends. In particular, the three men had been accustomed to Gu Xining's drinking, which made Li Xiang slightly frown. He thought that it would be difficult for Gu Xining to keep drinking. After staying for less than half an hour, Li Xiang really couldn't stand this environment, so he said that he wanted to go to the bathroom. It just so happened that he could take a break. Gu Xining was afraid that Li Xiang didn't know the way. Originally, she wanted to take Li Xiang there. However, one of the handsome men, who had a buzz cut and was dressed in fashionable brand, took the initiative to go with Li Xiang. Lei also pulled Gu Xining to drink, so Gu Xining had no choice. On the way from the booth to the bathroom, Li Xiang didn't say anything to the handsome man, who was a little bad. However, when he came out of the bathroom, the handsome man blocked his way. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. He didn't know what this handsome man meant. At this time, the handsome man said slowly, "Buddy, I don't know who you are, and I don't care about your background. But I advise you out of kindness. If you don't want to die too quickly, you should stay away from Gu Xining. You shouldn't provoke her." Hearing the handsome man's words, Li Xiang seemed to have guessed it and said subconsciously, "Are you threatening me?" Unexpectedly, the handsome man sneered and said, "I'm not threatening you, and I'm not interested in threatening you. After all, I'm not your rival in love or your enemy. I'm just advising you out of kindness. If you don't listen to me, just forget what I said." Haha. After saying these words, the handsome man turned around and left directly. Li Xiang was lost in thought. What did he mean? Climax. Chapter 1106. Investigate him. He was young and rich, had a superior family background, and was handsome. How could such a young man be short of girlfriends? Li Xiang already knew that this handsome man was called Liang Jia. As for what he did, he didn't know. However, it seemed that he had a good relationship with Gu Xining, and his family background should be similar. However, he seldom talked to the other two men, and there was some disdain in his eyes. However, Li Xiang didn't expect that Liang Jia would say these words to him. What did these words mean? He asked him to stay away from Gu Xining. Could it be that he had angered the two rivals in love, and they were going to hurt him, or something? Or did it mean something else? Before Li Xiang continued to ask, Liang Jia had already left. Li Xiang pondered for a while. It seemed that his aunt had said that beauty was always a source of trouble. If there was really any trouble, he should stay away from Gu Xining. However, Li Xiang didn't have this kind of character. He could leave naturally if he wasn't interested in Gu Xining, but if someone forced him to leave, he wouldn't accept it. He would just deal with it as it came. He would see what was going on first. After all, his relationship with Gu Xining hadn't reached that stage yet. When Li Xiang returned to the booth, the other two so-called rivals in love were forcing Gu Xining to drink, and there were also two beautiful women fanning the flames. He didn't know what Lulu was doing. Sun Tian wanted to help Gu Xining, but others didn't listen to her at all. As for Liang Jia, he had been sitting on the sidelines and watching the fun. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. Why should he stand up for Gu Xining? At this time, Li Xiang came back. He couldn't stand it when he saw Gu Xining being bullied like this. After all, he knew that Gu Xining didn't want to drink. She just came to stay for a while because of her pride. So he directly walked over to stop Gu Xining and said, "Stop drinking. You're already drunk. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?" One of the rich second generation said arrogantly, not taking Li Xiang seriously at all. Gu Xining didn't want the atmosphere to be awkward, nor did she want to see Li Xiang suffer losses. She said lightly, "I'm fine. Don't worry." Tut, tut, tut. We know Cece's capacity for liquor. You don't need to worry about her. A fair-skinned, rich, beautiful woman who did not have a good relationship with Gu Xining said angrily. She had always been fighting with Gu Xining, and she was the one who started the war just now. The rich second generation who first ridiculed Li Xiang was called Feng Jinglong. He was considered to be a little famous, rich second generation in Chengdu. He often drove a few supercars and caused havoc on the streets. It was said that his family had a good relationship with a few big shots of the underground world in Sichuan and Chongqing. He had been bitterly chasing after Gu Xining, but Gu Xining simply did not like him. Everyone knew about this. Because of this, Feng Jinglong had become a joke in this small circle. Someone bet that if he managed to win Gu Xining's heart, they would give him a Koenigsegg. It was obvious how difficult it was. When Feng Jinglong saw Li Xiang, he didn't take Li Xiang seriously at all. He even suspected that this man was an actor hired by Gu Xining to make him give up, because he didn't think that Gu Xining would find such a boyfriend. Besides, the Gu family had just been through an accident. If Gu Xining randomly found a boyfriend, it would be challenging the bottom line of the Gu family. It's fine if Cece doesn't drink, but are you going to drink it for her? Feng Jinglong looked at Li Xiang provocatively. Hearing this, Gu Xining frowned and said, "Did I say that I won't drink? He can't drink. Do you need to force him?" After saying that, Gu Xining directly picked up the wine glass on the table and was about to drink the 3 glasses of wine on the table. At this time, Li Xiang stopped Gu Xining. He held Gu Xining's wrist and took the wine glass unhurriedly. He said, "I'll drink her wine tonight. You can drink however you want." Before Gu Xining could react, Li Xiang picked up the wine glass and drank it in one gulp. Then he raised his head and drank the other 2 glasses, not giving anyone a chance at all. Gu Xining was stunned because Li Xiang said that he didn't drink, and his aunt never allowed him to drink. She also asked the people in the bar, and they also said that Li Xiang had never drunk in the bar, so Gu Xining believed it without a doubt. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would break the rule for her tonight. Could it be that Li Xiang lied to her when he said that he didn't drink? Didn't you say that you can't drink? I thought you could pretend for a long time. Another rival in love, named Chiu Kai, snorted. He didn't say much and just watched Feng Jinglong's performance. It was only at this time that he stood out. However, judging from Gu Xining's reaction just now, he seemed to have some doubts about the relationship between Li Xiang and Gu Xining. But it was also possible that they were friends. No matter who he was, tonight's goal was to get Li Xiang drunk. Therefore, the following scene was very simple. Gu Xining almost didn't drink a single drop of alcohol. All her alcohol was drunk by Li Xiang, while Feng Jinglong and Chiu Kai were against Li Xiang. Gu Xining wanted a drink for Li Xiang, but Li Xiang wouldn't let her. When Lei came back and saw this scene, she was a little shocked. How could Li Xiang, who didn't drink, get drunk like this? It seemed that the hero saved the beauty. She had already guessed what would happen tonight. Who asked Cece to bring her boyfriend along? There were 2 men who liked Cece. She could calm Chiu Kai down, but Feng Jinglong definitely couldn't. Just as she expected, she was right. It seemed that Li Xiang was going to suffer tonight. However, Gu Xining didn't give them a chance to completely defeat Li Xiang. When Lei came back, Gu Xining directly said to Lei, "I still have something to do. I have to go first. You guys continue to have fun." Gu Xining had been waiting for Lei. After all, it was Lei's birthday tonight. If she left without saying goodbye, Lei would definitely be unhappy. Of course, Lei knew what Gu Xining meant. She said in a hurry, "Baby, then you go first. Let's get together another day." At this time, Feng Jinglong was unhappy. He hadn't drunk enough yet. He sneered and said, "You can't afford to drink. If you can't afford to drink, then don't. Next time you find an actress, remember to find a better drinker." Gu Xining didn't bother to pay attention to Feng Jinglong. She also knew that Feng Jinglong had always been like this. Chiu Kai also wanted to say a few words. Who knew that after Lei glared at him, he became obedient. Although he also liked Gu Xining, because of the recent things that happened to the Gu family, he almost gave up. Moreover, there was still Feng Jinglong as an opponent. He had no chance at all. Li Xiang didn't have much contact with these people. If Gu Xining said to leave, he would leave. He didn't care about his face, and so on. In the world of adults, face was actually the least important. In this way, Gu Xining and Li Xiang left space in less than an hour. Although they didn't leave on bad terms, their mood was more or less affected. From the beginning to the end, Liang Zhe was watching the fun. Feng Jinglong and the others were really boring. If they really liked Gu Xining at this time, They should go all out to help Gu Xining, so that the poor mother and daughter would not be bullied by her uncle. But they didn't dare to do so. As for the man named Li Xiang, what do you still need to worry about? The Gu family will solve this problem for you. When they came out of space, the TV tower was more lively than before. It seemed that the later it was, the more lively it was. No wonder this was the wind vein of Chengdu's nightlife. Gu Xining said somewhat guiltily, "I'm sorry, I let you drink tonight." "Aunt doesn't let me drink, but it doesn't mean that I never drink," Li Xiang said truthfully. He didn't have to lie to Gu Xining. After these few days of contact, he didn't feel that this girl made him dislike anything. Gu Xining didn't say anything. Li Xiang's words were not wrong. "Do you think I'm lying to you?" Li Xiang chuckled. Gu Xining shook her head and said, "No, I know you just don't want to drink. I think the wine is quite delicious. It's just that my body was not good before, so Aunt never let me drink. Recently, my body has recovered, so I dared to drink for you tonight. But I don't feel anything after drinking so much. I must have been a drunkard in the past," Li Xiang muttered to himself. He really felt that the wine was quite delicious. Although Aunt never let him drink, he also secretly drank a few times. Gu Xining didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She still couldn't accept the fact that Li Xiang lost his memory. She said lightly, "Anyway, thank you for tonight. It's late. Let me send you home." Li Xiang felt that it was time to go back and said in a low voice. Gu Xining said thoughtfully, "It's okay, I can go back by myself." "You drink so much, I don't feel at ease going back alone," Li Xiang said firmly. This was what a man should do. In the end, Li Xiang took a taxi to send Gu Xining home. At the same time, Gu Xining called a designated driver to drive the car back. Otherwise, she would have to come back tomorrow to drive the car away. It was already early in the morning. Chengdu was still not quiet at night. Many places were still so lively, but the traffic on the road was much less than in the daytime. On the road, Li Xiang met many supercars. Sure enough, there were still many rich people in Chengdu. The place where Gu Xining lived was not far away. It was New Hope D10 Tianfu on E Street. This was a famous mansion in Chengdu, only one stop away from Taigugu. Every living room had a large French window. Outside the window, one could see the wonders of autumn snow in Xiling and Huazhongjin Guan City. At night, one could overlook the gorgeous neon lights in IFS Taigugu and various high-end parties and secret red wine dinners in the house. Gu Xining lived here most of the time and only went back to her home in Lushan on weekends. But recently, the atmosphere at home was too strange, so Gu Xining had not gone back for a long time. Not long after, Gu Xining arrived. Li Xiang did not know this place, but he could guess that the place where Gu Xining lived must be very expensive. He did not know when he could have a foothold in Chengdu. Maybe some people would say that as long as he married Gu Xining, it would be over. But Li Xiang was destined not to be a man who lived off a woman. "I'm here. You should go back early," Gu Xining said softly after getting off the car. She was indeed a little tired. Li Xiang did not say much and said softly, "Rest early." Then he got on the car and was ready to go back. He did not want to go home with Gu Xining after knowing her for such a short time. Moreover, even if Gu Xining was willing, he would not think about it. Gu Xining watched as Li Xiang left. She was getting to know this uncle more and more. He was more principled and had a bottom line than most people. He had always kept his distance from her, as if she was just a child in his eyes. This made Gu Xining feel a little defeated. When Li Xiang was far away, Gu Xining asked the driver to park the car before going upstairs. Recently, life was really muddled. She did not know when it would be over. Maybe she would be like this for the rest of her life. When Gu Xining and Li Xiang both left, in a Buick commercial car opposite the entrance of the community, a wretched man put away his phone and said, "Mr. Gu, your niece has gone back." "Where's that man?" A hoarse and low voice asked from the opposite side. The wretched man laughed and said, "Not together. He has already left." "Check him," the other side ordered directly. Chapter 1107. Li Xiang naturally knew that Gu Xining came from a wealthy family. Anyone could see that. Therefore, when Gu Xining said that she wanted to be his girlfriend, Li Xiang had always thought that it was just a girl who had not grown up yet. Therefore, Li Xiang decided to go along with her. He didn't think about other things at all, nor did he really want Gu Xining to be his girlfriend. It would be like a toad lusting after a swan's meat. Even Li Xiang himself didn't think that he was worthy of such an excellent Gu Xining, let alone other people's opinions. What did he have that Gu Xining liked? Apart from Gu Xining's so-called good singing. But could singing be used to make a living? He achieved nothing at the age of 30. He didn't have a car or a house. He was a courier during the day and a singer at night. Not to mention that Gu Xining didn't like such a man. How many women would like such a man? Even if they went to a blind date show, they would immediately turn off the lights and leave the venue regretfully as soon as the music started. Therefore, after Li Xiangxiang understood these things, he didn't take it seriously anymore. Gu Xining could do whatever she wanted. She just took it as adding some fun to his boring life. When she came to her senses one day, she would naturally stop fooling around. Moreover, even if Gu Xining wanted to find a man like Li Xiang, would her family agree? After all, one could fall in love with anyone, but for such a family, marriage was a luxury. It wasn't something that one could marry just because they wanted to. However, these things had nothing to do with Li Xiang. Li Xiang was just playing with Gu Xining. He hadn't reached that step yet. No matter what happened in life, life had to go on, and it wouldn't stop because of someone's appearance. Last night at Space, Li Xiang drank a bottle of wine that cost a few thousand yuan. Today, he had to continue delivering packages. His colleagues at the express delivery station naturally made fun of Li Xiang. Who asked Li Xiang to suddenly have such a girlfriend? Li Xiang didn't bother to pay attention to them. They could say whatever they wanted to say. After a while, no one would say anything. At noon, Li Xiang went back to the bookstore to deliver lunch to Ning. At the same time, he told Ning that he had borrowed the money and told her not to worry anymore. He would return the money tomorrow. At the same time, he made it clear to them that if they dared to come to him again in the future, they should not blame him for being rude. Ning was a little moved. She wanted to say something to thank him, but she couldn't open her mouth. What she wanted to know more was whether Li Xiang went home last night or not. In the end, she held back and didn't ask. Today, Li Xiang was very busy. He had been delivering packages for the whole day. He had delivered packages to almost all the nearby districts. He couldn't help but admire these young married women's online shopping ability. Almost all of them were women, and it was rare to see a man. Indeed, it was the men who raised the family and the women who squandered the family. His aunt hadn't returned yet, and Li Xiang was still free. He didn't know where his aunt had gone or when she would return. When Li Xiang returned to the express delivery station and was ready to get off work, Gu Xining had already arrived. Although they didn't contact each other much today, and Gu Xining didn't say that she would pick him up from work, Li Xiang wasn't surprised to see Gu Xining. Li Xiang just saw the Porsche parked in the courtyard. Of course, his colleagues had also informed him in advance and shouted, "Li Xiang, your little girlfriend is here." When Li Xiang came to the office, Gu Xining was chatting with the lady boss. He didn't know what method she used to make the lady boss smile very happily, and she even praised her a lot. What Li Xiang definitely didn't know was that it was the effect of 2 bottles of perfume. Gu Xining gave the lady boss 2 bottles of expensive perfume as soon as they met. In an instant, she knocked on the door of the lady boss with money. The lady boss immediately called Gu Xining's sister and directly told her everything about Li Xiang at the express delivery station. Fortunately, the lady boss didn't know about Li Xiang's past. Otherwise, she would have already told her everything. Not only that, Gu Xining also bought milk tea and fruits for everyone, since she received help from others who wouldn't be polite to her. Sure enough, money can make the devil turn millstones. Li Xiang, you're back. You're so lucky to have met a beauty like Cece. The lady boss laughed happily. Of course, she was talking to Gu Xining. Li Xiang, you're back. You're so lucky. Gu Xining quickly handed the freshly squeezed juice to Li Xiang and said, "You must be tired. Drink some juice. Don't you need to work every day?" Li Xiang had never asked this question before, so he asked casually. The lady boss giggled and said, "Who has money to work? If it were me, I would definitely not go to work. Isn't it good to eat and drink every day? It's so tiring to go to work. Look at how bad my skin is recently. How good it would be if I could be like Cece. Of course, Gu Xining knew what Li Xiang meant. He naturally didn't like her to be around him. She should have her own life. I'm on vacation. I'll go to the company after a period of time, Gu Xining explained. She had never been that kind of pampered rich lady. Li Xiang casually said, "Then let's go." Everyone watched Li Xiang and Gu Xining get in the car and leave. Seeing that Li Xiang, who was wearing work clothes, got in the Porsche 911, the other colleagues couldn't help but murmur, "They are both delivery men. Why is he at the peak of his life?" As soon as they walked out of the door, Li Xiang took the initiative to say, "Today is your payday. What do you want to eat? Let me treat you." At least he was Gu Xining's boyfriend in name now, so he should treat her to a meal. At this time, Gu Xining said hesitantly, "Actually, I have something to tell you. Please don't be angry after hearing it. It's my fault that I didn't discuss it with you in advance. There must be something wrong. Tell me what it is first." Li Xiang frowned and said. Gu Xining said carefully and embarrassedly, "My mother wants to see you. She has booked a restaurant and is waiting for you now." What? When hearing Gu Xining's words, Li Xiang was stunned and had a look of disbelief on his face. He had only known Gu Xining for a few days. Even if he was fooled by Gu Xining to be her boyfriend, it was only 2 days. Moreover, it was just a joke. How could he meet her parents now? Even if it was a serious relationship, who would meet her parents after dating for 2 days? It was too fast, wasn't it? Li Xiang hesitated for a long time and said, "Gu Xining, did I hear it wrong?" Gu Xining naturally did not dare to face Li Xiang because she was in the wrong. She whispered, "I didn't expect it to be so fast, but my mother insisted on seeing you. I don't know how she knew about you. Just take it as a formality. I will apologize to you later. What do you think?" Li Xiang did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Okay, since you want to play so big, I will play with you. At that time, when your mother sees me, a useless son-in-law, she will die of anger on the spot. Don't blame me for not reminding you." Gu Xining did not expect that Li Xiang would agree. She thought that he was just giving up. She let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Li Xiang, thank you. Don't worry, my mother is not that kind of person." Li Xiang was really giving up. When he met Gu Xining's mother, he would directly tell her that he was 32 years old this year and did not have a car, a house, or a degree. He delivered packages during the day and sang in a bar at night. He did not believe that Gu Xining's mother would not be angry. At that time, Gu Xining's mother would directly put pressure on her. Would Gu Xining dare to continue playing? Li Xiang could solve this problem. The two sides reached a compromise again. It was estimated that anyone who heard of their absurd things would feel a little unbelievable. One really dared to call, and the other really dared to go. No wonder Gu Xining dressed like a good girl today. She did not have feelings for him. Although Li Xiang agreed casually, he still had to be polite. He could not go directly in work clothes, could he? Therefore, he asked Gu Xining to send him home to change first. Then he called on Ning and asked her to order takeout by herself. He would not go back today. Ning did not say much. She just said, "Okay," and hung up. In the end, Li Xiang told the bar to adjust his time to later so that he could rush over after finishing his work. After that, Li Xiang followed Gu Xining to Tongzilin to meet her mother. He really did not know what Gu Xining was thinking. Could it be that her family was urging her to get married? So she casually dragged him to go with her? When they arrived at Tongzilin, it was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. The traffic in Chengdu was almost paralyzed at this time. The traffic was so heavy that people doubted their lives. No matter whether you drove a Porsche, you had to crawl obediently. Tongzilin used to be one of the wealthiest districts in Chengdu. The people who lived there all had villas and bungalows. Sports cars and luxury cars were everywhere. However, it was gradually declining now. After all, the wealthy had moved to places like Mount Muma and Lushan in the south. In addition, the mansions in the city had attracted new elites and rich second-generation heirs. This place was not as lively as it used to be. The restaurant that Gu Xining's mother booked was a friend's private restaurant. It wasn't a high-rise place, but it was quiet and hidden. After all, Gu Xining's mother knew too many people in Chengdu, and she didn't want everyone to know about it tomorrow. It was a small courtyard with a Chengdu flavor. There were bamboos everywhere, and several private rooms were hidden in the bamboo forest. After the waiter led Gu Xining and Li Xiang through a few corridors, they walked to the door of the private room. Gu Xining signaled the waiter to leave, then turned to Li Xiang and said, "Are you ready?" "There's nothing to prepare." Li Xiang shook his head and said. Gu Xining laughed and said, "Aren't you nervous?" "Not nervous." Li Xiang did not know why he was not nervous at all. It seemed that he was not nervous about anything. If he knew that he had experienced everything in the first half of his life, he would naturally understand why he was not nervous. Gu Xining said deliberately, "It seems that you must have met other women's parents before." "I'm over 30. It's normal that I have met their parents," Li Xiang said disdainfully. Gu Xining was a little unhappy when she heard this, but she also felt that what Li Xiang said was very reasonable. She had no choice but to let out a long sigh and said, "Then let's go in." After that, Gu Xining pushed the door and went in. In the antique private room with a strong Zen atmosphere, a graceful and luxurious middle-aged woman in a cheongsam was sitting there quietly and drinking tea. The middle-aged woman looked charming. She wore a valuable pearl necklace around her neck and a jade bracelet on her wrist, which could buy 2 apartments in Chengdu, not to mention other jewelry. It could only be said that the middle-aged woman was really noble. She had been here for half an hour, but she was not in a hurry at all, as if she knew that this was her daughter's style. If the man had not told her, she would not have known that her daughter had actually fallen in love. She really did not know what kind of man could make her proud daughter fall in love with him. Although she had already known that the man's real identity was a singer who delivered deliveries, the more she knew about it, the more curious she was. Because this was her daughter's choice. At this moment, the door of the private room was pushed open from the outside. She saw her daughter smiling and walking in, but the middle-aged woman did not immediately greet her. Instead, she subconsciously looked behind her daughter. When she saw the man who followed her daughter in, she was instantly stunned. They were so alike, really alike. Even their temperament was so similar. She finally understood. Chapter 1108. Most people's temperament was built up with money, especially the graceful and luxurious temperament of middle-aged women. Anyone could tell that they were especially rich. After all, ordinary people couldn't afford to buy cosmetics and various kinds of maintenance fees every year. It was no wonder that rich people looked especially young. For example, those young stars on TV. Their peers were old and had white hair and wrinkles, but they still looked young, as if they were 20 years younger than their peers. This was the magic of money. When the middle-aged woman saw Li Xiang, the smile on her face suddenly froze. She stared at Li Xiang, and no one knew what she was thinking. The middle-aged woman, who was Gu Xining's mother, was called Min Shu. She was a member of a scholarly family. When Gu Xining's father had nothing, she chose him and accompanied him to build up his family from scratch. Unfortunately, they couldn't grow old together because the man died in a car accident last month. As a result, the Gu family fell into internal strife, and the orphan and the widow were isolated. After Gu Xining came in, she said politely, "Mom." Li Xiang also said politely, "Auntie, sorry to keep you waiting." After saying that, Li Xiang was still thinking that Gu Xining's mother looked very young. If he met her outside, he should call her older sister to be more polite. After all, women didn't like to be called too old. However, no matter what Gu Xining or Li Xiang said, Min Shu didn't respond. She just kept staring at Li Xiang. At this time, Li Xiang also found that Gu Xining's mother was looking at him, which made him a little embarrassed. Of course, Gu Xining also found that. Of course, she knew why her mother was absent-minded. Because when she first met Li Xiang, she felt like she was dreaming. He really looked like her father, who had passed away. Except for the difference in age and height, even his temperament was so similar. So, she was attracted to him. Otherwise, how could Li Xiang make Gu Xining, who was extremely arrogant, take the initiative to pester him? Gu Xining was afraid that her mother would scare Li Xiang, so she walked over and held her mother's arm with a smile. "Mom, what's wrong?" Min Shu came to her senses and realized that she had lost her composure. But how could she not? She greeted him warmly. You must be Li Xiang. Have a seat, have a seat. Li Xiang sat next to Gu Xining awkwardly. Although he didn't feel nervous, his relationship with Gu Xining was just a joke. He felt weird that he had to meet Gu Xining's parents for no reason. He hoped that he could finish the procedure as soon as possible. You haven't eaten yet, right? Let's order dishes first. We can talk while eating, Min Shu said with a smile. Her smile was very warm and made people feel quite comfortable. As she spoke, Min Shu called the waiter in and took the initiative to hand the menu to Li Xiang. Li Xiang, take a look first. Don't be so restrained. Just treat me as an ordinary elder. Li Xiang responded with an embarrassed smile. He took the menu and ordered 2 of his favorite dishes. It was his salary. Not long after, everyone ordered the dishes. Min Shu asked again, Li Xiang, do you want a drink? Before Li Xiang said anything, Gu Xining said, Mom, Li Xiang can't drink. He's not feeling well. Oh, then I won't drink. It's not good to drink. Cece's father loves to drink too much. I can't persuade him to stop drinking, Min Shu said with a sigh. But she didn't feel disappointed. She was still immersed in the moment when she met Li Xiang for the first time. Min Shu could only drink tea. Min Shu ordered a pot of high-quality Longjing tea before the Ming Dynasty. After a while, the waiter began to serve the dishes. After all, there were only a few private rooms here, so the dishes were naturally served quickly. As soon as they started to eat, Min Shu asked directly, Li Xiang, how old are you this year? Are you from Chengdu? Auntie, I'm 32 this year. I'm not from Chengdu, but from Guizhou. I just came to Chengdu 2 months ago, Li Xiang told the truth. He believed that his age alone could shock Gu Xining's mother. After all, she was 6 years older than Gu Xining. Hearing Li Xiang's words, Min Shu frowned and subconsciously looked at her daughter. She didn't expect that Li Xiang was 6 years older than her daughter, and that he wasn't from Chengdu. Gu Xining didn't feel embarrassed. She said, Mom, isn't my father a few years older than you? Li Xiang, is there anyone else in your hometown in Guizhou? Will you settle down in Chengdu, or go back to your hometown? Min Shu continued to ask. Li Xiang said lightly, There's no one in my hometown. My parents passed away when I was young, and I've been living with my aunt. She's also in Chengdu now. As for the future, I don't know yet. I want to settle down in Chengdu, but the housing price is too expensive. I guess I can't afford a house in this life. Maybe I'll go back to my hometown. What Li Xiang meant was that he couldn't afford a house because he didn't have enough money, so it was more likely that he would go back to his hometown in the future. Min Shu didn't care about it at all. It might be a problem for others, but it was a piece of cake for the Gu family. As long as Li Xiang was capable, it would be fine. Min Shu said politely, As a young man, you could buy a house anytime you want, as long as you have a place to live. What's your job now? Hearing that, Li Xiang finally got to the point. Auntie, I hope that I won't scare you in the future. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to blame someone, blame your daughter. Auntie, I have a good job. I deliver packages during the day, and now I can make a lot of money. As long as I work hard, I can easily make 7,000 or 8,000 yuan a month. In the evening, I also work as a resident singer in a bar. I like to listen to songs and sing, so I found this job. I just went to Jiyin Bridge not long ago, and I can make 200 or 300 yuan by singing in a bar for half an hour. If I work in a few more bars, my monthly income will be more than what I can earn by delivering packages. As long as I can work hard for a few years, I can easily buy a house, Li Xiang said in an exaggerated tone on purpose. He wanted to make Gu Xining's mother think that he was a frog at the bottom of a well, so that Gu Xining's mother would never like him. However, to Li Xiang's surprise, Gu Xining's mother didn't have any reaction after hearing what Li Xiang said. She just stared at Li Xiang with a smile. After all, she already knew what Li Xiang wanted to do. She just wanted to see what Li Xiang would say. If Li Xiang told her the truth, she would think that he was a good young man, but if he lied to save his face, her impression of him would be greatly reduced. In the end, Li Xiang told her the truth, which made Min Shu very satisfied. However, Li Xiang was a little confused. Gu Xining quietly looked at Li Xiang and murmured in her heart, I told you to act, so you better do it well. Li Xiang, have you ever thought about changing your job? Min Shu directly threw an olive branch to Li Xiang. If Li Xiang was willing, she could give him a very high platform. Li Xiang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Annie, I don't even have an academic degree. What kind of job can I do? I can only be a coolie. Li Xiang, you don't need to care about the background of a hero. Academic degree is just a kind of ability. Many people just lack a good platform. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about Cece. Have you ever thought about these things? Min Shu didn't want to hurt Li Xiang's feelings, but said so. Li Xiang really wanted to say, Auntie, I really haven't thought about these things. Your daughter is just making fun of me. Are you serious? However, Li Xiang could only say, Auntie, you're right. I know that I'm not good enough for Cece now. Even if you agree, I won't agree. So I'll think about what you said. When my aunt comes back, I'll discuss it with her. Well, I'm glad that you think so. I won't despise you because of your age, family background, or your job. I've told Cece's father that no matter who Cece likes, we'll support her as long as she likes him. Even if he's a street sweeper, we won't mind. So you can rest assured. But how others think of Cece and you, it's your business. You have to think about it carefully. Min Shu acted like an experienced person and said earnestly. Hearing this, Li Xiang finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Gu Xining's mother thought in this way. No wonder Gu Xining's mother didn't take his words seriously. It turned out that what he had done was useless. No wonder Gu Xining dared to bring him to meet her parents. However, on the other hand, Li Xiang was quite touched. In such an environment like the Gu family, Gu Xining's parents could be so open-minded, which was rare and commendable. Gu Xining was really lucky to have such parents. Li Xiang was completely defeated. He had no choice but to say, Auntie, you're right. I see. Later on, the atmosphere was not as awkward as at the beginning. Li Xiang still answered Min Shu's questions casually. He answered whatever Min Shu asked him. Gu Xining talked more in the end. Most of the time, she was trying to ease the atmosphere. Not long after dinner, Li Xiang left because he was going to continue to sing in the bar. Min Shu didn't stop him and asked the driver to send him there. Gu Xining stayed. Cece, tell Mommy, are you joking or serious? I know you like him because he has the shadow of your father. When I first saw him just now, I was also stunned. He really looks like your father when he was young. But love and marriage are not a joke. The gap between you two is too big, understand? Min Shu said earnestly. Gu Xining stopped fooling around like she did in front of Li Xiang. She replied, Mom, I know. I can't say that I like him now, but I'll get to know him slowly. If I really like him, I'll choose him at all costs. Moreover, Cece, if you ask him to be your boyfriend at this time, what will your uncle think? Us orphans and widows are not his match at all, and Li Xiang doesn't have the ability to help us. I'm just afraid that your uncle will think too much and harm Li Xiang when the time comes. Min Shu's tone was very heavy when she talked about this matter. Since Gu Xining's father passed away, the group had been completely divided. The group built by Gu Xining's father was about to fall into someone else's hands. However, Gu Xining and her mother couldn't do anything because everyone supported Gu Xining's uncle. After all, Gu Xining's uncle was backed by a big boss in Chengdu. No one dared to offend him. Thinking of this, Gu Xining was also a little scared. If it was true, Li Xiang would indeed be in danger because of her. She had no choice but to say, Mom, let me think about it. At this time, Min Shu sighed and said, I'm afraid it's too late. Why? Because the information about Li Xiang was told to her by Gu Xining's uncle. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.